The boardroom at Whitmore University hadn't changed much in 15 years. Same oil paintings of dead white men. Same mahogany table polished to a mirror shine. Same uncomfortable chairs designed to keep meetings short. But today, everything was different. Dr. Gerald Haversham sat at the far end, still wearing that insufferable tweed jacket with the elbow patches, still carrying himself with the arrogance of a man who'd never been seriously challenged. He was reading from his phone, probably composing another scathing review of some graduate student's work, when Board Chair Patricia Nguyen called the meeting to order. "Before we begin our regular agenda," Patricia announced, "I have the pleasure of introducing Whitmore University's new chancellor." Haversham barely glanced up. He'd weathered 5 chancellors in his 30-year tenure. Each one had tried to modernize his department, challenge his methods, question his authority. Each one had failed. "Please welcome Dr. Amara Jackson." I walked in slowly, savoring each step. 15 years of preparation had led to this moment. My heels clicked against the hardwood floor with the rhythm of approaching justice. Haversham's head snapped up at my name. His eyes met mine, and I watched the blood drain from his face as recognition dawned. "Hello, Professor," I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. "Though I suppose I should call you Gerald now. Colleagues, after all." His mouth opened and closed soundlessly. The man who'd once announced to a packed lecture hall that this student will never amount to anything suddenly had nothing to say. "Shall we begin?" I opened my folder, revealing the first item on my agenda. A comprehensive review of the economics department, with particular focus on faculty misconduct and systemic discrimination. His hands trembled as he reached for his water glass. "Yes, Professor. The student who would never amount to anything now controlled your future. And unlike you, I'd done my homework. To understand this moment, you need to know about Economics 497. Advanced Thesis Seminar, Spring 2010. I was 21, first-generation college student, daughter of immigrants who cleaned offices at night so I could study in them during the day. I fought for every grade, every scholarship, every opportunity. My thesis, examining how microfinance initiatives could revitalize inner-city economies, was my ticket to graduate school. Dr. Gerald Haversham was a legend at Whitmore. Published in all the right journals, consulted by all the right think tanks, worshipped by all the right people. Getting him as a thesis advisor was considered a coup. It was a disaster from day one. Microfinance? He'd sneered during our first meeting. How trendy. How optimistic. I suppose next you'll tell me that cryptocurrency will solve world hunger. The data shows significant economic improvement in communities with access to. The data shows what naive researchers want it to show, he interrupted. But by all means, waste your final semester on this pet project. Just don't expect my endorsement for graduate programs. I should have switched advisors then. But I was young, stubborn, and believed that good work would speak for itself. I was wrong. For 4 months, I poured everything into that thesis. I conducted original research, interviewed dozens of small business owners, created economic models that even Haversham couldn't dismiss outright. He found other ways to dismiss them. "Your methodology is flawed," he'd say, without explaining how. "Your conclusions are unsupported," he'd claim, ignoring the 20 pages of data that supported them. "Your writing lacks academic rigor," he'd scrawl across drafts that I'd revised 15 times. But the real cruelty came during presentations. This seminar met weekly, 12 students presenting their work in progress. Haversham turned mine into a blood sport. "Ms. Jackson believes," he'd always emphasize believes like it was a dirty word, that poor people just need small loans to bootstrap their way to success. How charmingly American. How blindly optimistic. How utterly ungrounded in economic reality. The other students would shift uncomfortably. Some would smirk, eager to stay on his good side. Nathan Wexler, his favorite, would actually take notes on Haversham's cruelty like he was learning technique. The breaking point came in April, 3 weeks before thesis submissions were due. I just finished presenting my final econometric analysis, months of careful work condensed into 20 minutes of PowerPoint slides. The room was silent when I finished. While Haversham said, leaning back in his chair, "That was something." A few nervous laughs from the peanut gallery. "Tell me, Ms. Jackson, do you actually believe this fantasy you've constructed? This idea that a few $1,000s can transform generations of economic disadvantage?" The data clearly shows. The data shows correlation, not causation. A mistake I'd expect from an undergraduate, not someone allegedly ready for graduate level work. He stood, addressing the class more than me. This is what happens when we lower admission standards, when we prioritize diversity over merit. Students who simply aren't equipped for rigorous academic work convince themselves that their feelings constitute research. My face burned. My research is solid. Your research is activist propaganda dressed up in academic language, and poorly dressed at that. He picked up my draft, holding it like contaminated waste. I've read undergraduate papers with more intellectual merit. In fact, I've read high school essays with clearer thinking. Someone gasped. Even Nathan looked uncomfortable. Haversham wasn't done. This student will never amount to anything in the field of economics. Mark my words. 20 years from now, you'll all be successful economists, and Ms. Jackson will be, well, perhaps she'll find work in some nonprofit, writing grant proposals that no one will fund for programs that don't work. The room was tomb silent. I suggest you consider whether you want to submit this thesis at all, he concluded. A withdrawal would be less embarrassing than a failure. I stood on legs that felt like water, gathered my materials with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, and left. Behind me, I heard him say, "Now, Mr. Wexler, show us what real economic analysis looks like." I made it to the bathroom before I threw up. I almost quit, almost let him win. But that night, cleaning offices with my mother, a job I'd taken to help with family bills, she found me crying over my laptop. "Maija, what's wrong?" I told her everything. About Haversham, about the humiliation, about how maybe he was right and I didn't belong there. She listened, then sat beside me in the empty corporate conference room we were supposed to be vacuuming. "You know what I see when I clean these offices?" she asked. "I see men like your professor. Big titles, big egos, small minds. They think because they sit in these chairs during the day, they own the building. But I have the keys. I decide when the lights go on, when the doors open. Without me, they'd be sitting in the dark. It's not the same, isn't it?" She pointed at my thesis on the laptop screen. "You're writing about people like us. People they ignore, dismiss, step over. You think he hates your work because it's bad? No, Maija. He hates it because it makes him irrelevant. But he's Gerald Haversham. He has power." "Power isn't permanent," she said. "My mother used to say, El río siempre encuentra su camino. The river always finds its way. You just have to be patient and persistent." So I persisted. I submitted my thesis without Haversham's approval. It passed the departmental review, barely, despite his scathing evaluation. I graduated without honors, without his recommendation, without the graduate school acceptances I dreamed of. But I graduated. Unable to get into economics PhD programs, I pivoted. Got an MBA at a state school Haversham would have sneered at. Worked at a community development financial institution, implementing exactly the kind of programs he'd mocked. Built a reputation for turning around failing initiatives. My work got noticed. The Ford Foundation hired me. Then the World Bank. Then the Federal Reserve. Each success, I thought of Haversham. Not with bitterness anymore, but with clarity. He'd shown me what economics shouldn't be. Isolated, theoretical, dismissive of lived experience. I built my career on being everything he wasn't. 10 years out of Whitmore, I was running multi-billion-dollar development programs. 15 years out, I was headhunted for university leadership positions. When Whitmore's chancellor position opened, I almost didn't apply. But then I pulled up the faculty directory. Haversham was still there, still teaching economics 497, still crushing dreams with 10 years protection. The river had found its way. Our first order of business, I said, watching Haversham's knuckles whiten as he gripped his water glass, is addressing systemic issues in faculty conduct and student support. Board members nodded. They'd hired me specifically to modernize Whitmore, to address its reputation for hostility toward minority and first-generation students. I've reviewed 5 years of student complaints and exit interviews, I continued. There are concerning patterns, particularly in departments where tenure has become a shield for unprofessional behavior. Haversham's jaw clenched. "Chancellor Jackson," he said, voice straining for his usual condescension. "Surely academic freedom." "Academic freedom isn't freedom from accountability, Gerald." I used his first name deliberately, watched him flinch. It's not freedom to humiliate students. It's not freedom to dismiss research because it challenges your worldview. And it's certainly not freedom from consequences. This is retaliation, he sputtered. Personal vendetta. This is data. I slid a folder across the table. 15 years of student complaints against you. Disproportionate failure rates for women and minority students in your classes. Exit interviews citing your behavior as a reason for leaving economics. The pattern is clear. Patricia Nguyen, the board chair, picked up the folder. Her expression darkened as she read. Additionally, I continued, I've been contacted by former students interested in filing formal Title X complaints about discriminatory behavior. The statute of limitations hasn't expired. The room was silent except for the whisper of turning pages. The university's liability exposure is significant, I said. But more importantly, our moral obligation to current and future students is clear. What are you proposing? Patricia asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. Professor Haversham has two options. Retire immediately with a negotiated settlement that includes a non-disclosure agreement and prohibition from teaching at any institution receiving federal funds. Or face formal investigation, potential litigation, and probable termination for cause. You can't, Haversham started. I can. I met his eyes directly. I'm the chancellor. I decide who represents Whitmore University's values. And you, Professor, no longer do. The meeting adjourned with Haversham stumbling out like a broken man. The board unanimously supported immediate action. Patricia stayed behind. That was intense, she said. History there. He was my thesis advisor, I admitted. Told me I'd never amount to anything. Said I'd be writing grant proposals for programs that don't work. And instead, I spent 15 years building programs that transformed communities, generated over $2 billion in economic development, published in journals he could only dream of accessing. And now I run the university that gave him his power. Patricia smiled. The best revenge is massive success. No, I corrected. The best revenge is systematic change. Haversham is just one toxic professor, but the system that protected him, enabled him, rewarded him. That's what needs to be demolished. Over the next 6 months, we restructured the entire academic review process, implemented mandatory bias training, created safe reporting systems for students, recruited diverse faculty who understood that brilliance comes in many forms. Haversham took the retirement deal. I heard he moved to Florida, tried to get adjunct positions, but word had spread. Turns out, when you're not protected by tenure and institutional inertia, your actual value becomes clear. Nathan Wexler, his former favorite student, now taught at a community college. He reached out once, asking if Whitmore was hiring. His research record was thin, his teaching evaluations mediocre. Without Haversham's protection, he was just another failed academic. I didn't respond personally. HR sent a form rejection. The real victory came the following spring when I sat in on the new Economics 497 seminar, now taught by Dr. Kiko Tanaka, a brilliant economist who'd spent years documenting how traditional economic models failed marginalized communities. A young woman, first generation, Latina, nervous but determined, presented her thesis on using cryptocurrency to provide banking services to undocumented immigrants. Fascinating approach, Dr. Tanaka said. Your methodology is innovative. Have you considered expanding this framework? With work like this, you should be targeting top PhD programs. The student beamed. Around the table, her classmates took notes, asked supportive questions, built on her ideas. This was what education should be, what Whitmore could be. After class, the student, Maria Gonzalez, stopped me in the hall. Chancellor Jackson, I just wanted to thank you for everything you've changed here. My older sister went to Whitmore 10 years ago, majored in economics, but switched after a horrible professor told her she didn't belong. She always wondered what would have happened if she'd stayed. I thought of all the students Haversham had driven away, all the brilliant minds he'd dismissed, all the innovations he'd strangled in their infancy. What's your sister doing now? I asked. She's a social worker. Loves it, but sometimes talks about the economics research she wanted to do, about how different things might have been. That night, I drafted a new initiative, a returning scholars program for students who left Whitmore due to hostile academic environments. Full scholarships, mentorship, a chance to finish what they'd started. The board approved it unanimously. We named it the Second Chances Scholarship. Haversham would have hated everything about it, which made it perfect. 3 years into my tenure as Chancellor, Whitmore's Economics Department was ranked third in the nation for diversity and innovation. Our graduates were transforming communities, challenging traditional models, proving that economics was about more than theories, it was about people. I kept Haversham's final evaluation of my thesis in my desk drawer, not as motivation anymore, but as a reminder. Next to it, I kept the acceptance letter from Harvard's PhD program, the one that finally came after my work proved impossible to ignore. I turned it down. I had bigger things to build. Sometimes, late at night in the Chancellor's office, I thought about that day in Economics 497. How small I'd felt. How certain he'd been that I'd fail. He'd been right about one thing. I never became the economist he'd envisioned. I became something he couldn't imagine. The person who made sure no student would ever endure what I had. The river always finds its way. Sometimes it just needs to gather enough force to sweep away the obstacles in its path. And sometimes those obstacles look an awful lot like tenured professors in tweed jackets who confused cruelty with rigor, tradition with truth, and their own limitations with universal law. "You're fired," I told him calmly in that boardroom. But really, he'd been drowning since the day he tried to dam a river he couldn't even see.
It will look better coming from me, you know. Those 8 words changed everything. My sister Harmony said them with that perfect smile of hers, the one that had been melting hearts since she was 5 years old. She was holding my architectural sketches, my life's work, like they were grocery lists. "My name is Quinn, and I've been living in my younger sister's shadow for 32 years. If you've ever been the smart one, while your sibling got to be the pretty one, you know exactly what I'm talking about." Except Harmony wasn't just pretty, she was magnetic, charming, the kind of person who could walk into a room and have everyone gravitating toward her within minutes. "Quinn, sweetheart, we need to talk." Mum's voice cut through my thoughts as she glided into the cramped conference room where I'd been working. Dad followed behind her, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. Josh, Harmony's husband, brought up the rear, his usual cocky demeanour replaced by something that looked suspiciously like desperation. "What's going on?" I asked, though I already knew. Josh's development company had been hemorrhaging money for months. The whispers in the industry were getting louder. "We have a proposition," Dad said, settling into the chair across from me. "Josh's company needs an architect, someone with vision, someone we can trust." I almost laughed. For years they'd dismissed my career as unmarriageable and too practical. While Harmony flitted from one social event to another, I'd been building a reputation as one of the most innovative, sustainable architects in the city. But suddenly, now that their golden child's lifestyle was threatened, my boring skills were exactly what they needed. "We're talking about a revolutionary project," Josh jumped in, his voice carrying that salesman energy that had probably charmed investors before they realised he had no substance behind the shine. "Green communities, sustainable living, the whole package. It's right up your alley." "And the compensation?" I asked. Mum waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, Quinn, this is family. We're not talking about money. We're talking about helping each other." "I'm talking about credit," I said firmly. "If I design something, my name goes on it. Full attribution, contractual recognition, the works." The room went quiet. Dad shifted in his seat. Josh's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course," Harmony said, appearing in the doorway like she'd been summoned. "We wouldn't dream of taking credit for your work, Quinn. You know that." But her eyes said something different. They always had. "I'll need it in writing," I said. "Naturally," Josh agreed, though he looked like he'd swallowed something bitter. "We'll have the contracts drawn up immediately." 2 hours later, I was staring at a standard architectural consulting agreement. It looked legitimate enough, but I'd learned not to trust anything that came too easily from my family. I spent another hour going through it line by line, adding clauses, demanding specific language about intellectual property and attribution. "This is quite thorough," the lawyer said when I handed over my revisions. "I'm quite thorough," I replied. When I finally signed the contract, I felt a mixture of hope and dread. Hope that maybe, finally, my family would see me as more than just the practical daughter who could be counted on to clean up messes. Dread because I knew better than to trust them completely. "Congratulations, sis," Harmony said, appearing at my elbow as I capped my pen. "This is going to be amazing, though you know how these investor meetings go. Sometimes it's better to have a more personable face presenting the ideas." There it was again, that smile, that tone that made everything sound reasonable even when it absolutely wasn't. "The contract is very clear about attribution," I said carefully. "Oh, absolutely. But you know what I mean. You're brilliant with the technical stuff, but I'm better with people. We make a great team." Josh nodded enthusiastically. "Harmony has some fantastic ideas about the marketing angle, the human interest side of things." "I'm sure she does," I said. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from Chloe, my best friend and the only person who'd been warning me about this from the start. "How did it go? Please tell me you got everything in writing." I typed back, "Contract signed. Wish me luck." Her response came immediately. "You're going to need it." I stared at that message for a long moment before starting my car. Deep down, I knew she was right, but for the first time in years, my family needed me. They were asking for my help, my expertise, my vision. I just had to make sure they didn't steal it. The office they gave me was a converted storage closet, literally. I could still see the outline where shelves used to be mounted on the walls. "It's cozy," Harmony said, peeking her head through the doorway. "Very intimate, workspace vibes." "It's a closet," I said flatly. "Oh, Quinn, don't be so dramatic. You know how tight space is right now. Besides, you work better when you're not distracted, right?" Meanwhile, Harmony had claimed the corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. When I asked Josh about it, he just shrugged. "She's handling the client relations side of things, needs the impressive space for meetings." Right. Because my revolutionary sustainable community designs were apparently less important than wherever Harmony was having her lunch meetings. I threw myself into the work anyway. This project could change everything, not just for Josh's failing company, but for how we think about urban development entirely. I designed integrated solar systems, rainwater collection, community gardens on every rooftop, buildings that breathed with their environment instead of fighting against it. "This is incredible," Marcus, one of Josh's junior architects, said when I showed him the preliminary sketches. "The way you've integrated the green spaces with the residential units, I've never seen anything like this." "Thanks," I said, feeling that rare, warm glow of professional recognition. "Are you presenting this to the board next week?" I looked up from my drafting table. "What board meeting?" Marcus's face went pale. "Oh, Harmony mentioned she was presenting the new community concept to the investors on Thursday." My stomach dropped. "She what?" "I probably misunderstood," Marcus said quickly, backing toward the door. "I should get back to work." But I was already pulling up my email, scrolling through the company-wide messages I'd somehow missed. There it was, buried in my spam folder. Investor presentation, Walton Vision Community Project, Thursday to 2 p.m. Walton Vision. Not Ford Vision. Not even Ford Walton Vision. I marched straight to Josh's office, not bothering to knock. "We need to talk." Josh looked up from his computer, startled. "Quinn, what's up?" "The investor meeting. Thursday. Why wasn't I told?" "Oh, that." He waved his hand dismissively. "Harmony's handling the presentation side. You know how these things go. Lots of schmoozing, relationship building. Not really your thing." "Not my thing. It's my design." "Of course it is. And Harmony will make sure they know that. She's just better at the people stuff, you know. More approachable." There was that word again. Approachable. Code for prettier and more charming and everything you're not. "I want to be there," I said. "Absolutely. You should definitely be there, in case there are any technical questions. In case there are technical questions, like I was some kind of consultant they'd call in if the PowerPoint crashed." That evening, I was working late when I heard voices from the conference room. Harmony's laugh echoed down the hallway, followed by Josh's voice. "Just need to make sure the messaging is consistent. Can't have mixed signals going to the investors." I crept closer, staying in the shadows. "Don't worry," Harmony was saying. "I've got this handled. Quinn's brilliant with the nuts and bolts, but she doesn't understand the bigger picture, the vision." "Right, and you've reviewed all her technical specs?" "Please. I've been living and breathing this project for weeks. I probably understand it better than she does at this point. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach." What about the attribution stuff? Josh asked. She was pretty insistent about the contract language. Harmony laughed again, but this time it had an edge to it. Josh, sweetie, contracts are just paper. What matters is who the investors remember, who they trust, who they want to work with. But if she makes a fuss, she won't. Quinn's not a fighter. She never has been. She'll grumble a bit, but at the end of the day, she just wants to be included. Make her feel important, and she'll go along with whatever we need. I backed away from the door, my hands shaking. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in my car in Chloe's driveway, trying not to cry. They're stealing it, I said, when she opened her front door. They're actually stealing my work. Chloe pulled me inside and poured 2 glasses of wine without asking. Tell me everything. I did. Every detail, every conversation, every dismissive comment and patronising smile. Your name isn't on a single proposal, is it? Chloe said when I finished. I thought about it. The investor packet I'd glimpsed on Josh's desk. The presentation slides Marcus had mentioned. The project name itself. No, I whispered. It's not. This isn't right, Quinn. This isn't just family drama anymore. This is theft. I stared into my wine glass, watching the dark liquid swirl. Do you trust them? Chloe asked quietly. I looked up at her. My oldest friend. The only person who'd never made me feel like second best. No, I said. I don't think I ever did. The next morning, I installed tracking software on every file I'd created. If someone so much as opened one of my designs, I'd know about it. Is this legal? I asked Chloe over the phone. They're your files on your work computer. You're just monitoring your own intellectual property. Within hours, the alerts started flooding my phone. Harmony had accessed my master design folder 17 times. Josh had downloaded my sustainability reports. Someone with the username HW Vision had copied my entire project directory. HW Harmony Walton. I screenshot everything. Quinn! Harmony's voice rang out across the office. Can you come here for a second? I found her in the conference room with a stack of my printed designs spread across the table. She was highlighting sections with a pink marker. What are you doing? Just making some notes for the presentation. You know, simplifying some of the technical language so the investors can follow along. I picked up one of the sheets. She'd crossed out Ford Sustainable Community Design and written Walton Vision Initiative in the margin. You can't just change the project name. Oh, this is just for clarity. The investors need something catchy, something that rolls off the tongue. Ford Sustainable sounds so academic. It sounds like my name. Harmony laughed, that tinkling sound that had charmed everyone from kindergarten teachers to college professors. Quinn, you're being so sensitive. This is about the project, not personal credit. We're all working toward the same goal here. That afternoon, I drove to the law office where I'd had my contract reviewed. The lawyer, Patricia, looked over my documentation with raised eyebrows. This is pretty clear-cut intellectual property theft, she said. Your contract explicitly states that all designs remain attributed to you. They can't just rebrand your work. What are my options? Well, you could send a cease and desist letter, or wait and see if they actually go through with it, then pursue damages after the fact. What would you do? Patricia leaned back in her chair. Honestly, I'd document everything and prepare for war. People who steal intellectual property rarely stop at just one theft. That evening I was supposed to have dinner with my parents. Mum had insisted on family time before the big presentation. You look tired, sweetheart, Mum said as she passed the salad. Are you getting enough sleep? I've been working on the project. Oh, that's wonderful. Harmony says it's coming along beautifully. She's so excited about Thursday. She should be. It's my design she's presenting. The table went quiet. Dad cleared his throat. Quinn, let's not make this about credit. This is about helping Josh's company succeed, about supporting family. By letting Harmony take credit for my work. Nobody's taking credit for anything, Mum said sharply. Harmony is simply the face of the project. She's better with people, more presentable. There was that word again, presentable. What does that make me? Unpresentable? Don't be dramatic, Dad said. You know what your mother means. Harmony has a gift for communication. She can sell your ideas better than you can. They're not her ideas to sell. Quinn? Dad's voice carried that warning tone I'd heard my entire childhood. Don't make this difficult. Harmony is doing this for the good of the family. The least you can do is support her. I stared at him across the dinner table. This man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd helped with my math homework, who'd driven me to architecture camp every summer. This man who was asking me to smile and nod while my sister stole my life's work. For the good of the family, I repeated. Exactly. And what about what's good for me? Mum set down her fork with a sharp clink. Quinn, you're being selfish. This isn't about you. It's about all of us succeeding together. By erasing me, nobody's erasing you, Dad said. You'll get your recognition. Just let Harmony handle the presentation first. Let her do what she does best. I excused myself early, claiming a headache. As I was leaving, I heard Mom talking to Dad in the kitchen. She's always been jealous of Harmony, ever since they were little. She'll get over it, Dad replied. She always does. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before driving home. When I got there, I had 3 missed calls from Chloe and a text. Emergency. Call me now. What's wrong? I asked when she picked up. I did some digging on Josh's company. Quinn, they're in worse shape than you thought. This project isn't just important to them, it's their last shot. If this doesn't work, they're filing for bankruptcy. So they're desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. And I found something else. My stomach clenched. What? Harmony's been posting on social media about the project, calling it her vision for sustainable living. She's building a whole personal brand around your work. I pulled up Instagram on my phone. There it was. Harmony in a hard hat at a construction site. Captioned, bringing my sustainable community vision to life. Can't wait to share more details soon. Shaya Walton vision. Gaha sustainable living. Da our dreams come true. The post had 847 likes and dozens of comments praising her innovation and forward thinking. Quinn, you still there? Yeah, I said quietly. I'm here. What are you going to do? I stared at Harmony's smiling face on my phone screen, at all those comments calling her a visionary, a genius, an inspiration. I'm going to stop them. The coffee shop was nearly empty when I met Jermaine. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe late 20s, with sharp eyes and a recorder app already open on his phone. Thanks for reaching out, he said, sliding into the booth across from me. Your message was intriguing. This is off the record for now, I said. I just want to know what my options are if a story develops. What kind of story are we talking about? I pulled out my phone and showed him Harmony's Instagram posts. Intellectual property theft. A woman taking credit for her sister's architectural designs. Jermaine's eyebrows shot up. Family drama sells, but I need proof, real proof. I have contracts, digital timestamps, file access logs. I slid a flash drive across the table. Everything's on there. He pocketed the drive without looking at it. Why come to me? Why not just handle this legally? Because legal takes time. And by then, she'll have convinced everyone the ideas were hers all along. And if I run this story, then the truth comes out before she can bury it. Jermaine leaned back, studying me. You know this will destroy your family relationships. They're already destroyed. I'm just the only one who knows it yet. That afternoon, I locked myself in my closet office and pulled out my original contract. There it was, buried in section 7.3, all architectural designs, concepts, and related intellectual property created by Quinn Ford during the term of this agreement shall remain the exclusive property of Quinn Ford, with full attribution required for any public presentation or marketing materials. I'd fought for that clause. Josh's lawyer had called it unnecessarily restrictive. Now I understood why. Quinn! Josh's voice boomed from the hallway. Conference room now. I found him there with Harmony and Zane, Josh's business partner. Zane looked uncomfortable, like he'd rather be anywhere else. We need to talk about Thursday, Josh said. What about it? There's been a change of plans. We're moving the presentation to the Marriott downtown. Bigger venue, more investors. Okay. And we've streamlined the presentation, made it more cohesive. Harmony smiled. We don't want to confuse anyone with too many voices. I'll be handling the entire presentation. The entire presentation? Don't worry, Josh said quickly. If there are technical questions, we'll bring you up. But Harmony will be the primary presenter. The primary presenter of my work. Zane shifted in his chair. Look, Quinn, I know this is awkward, but... Awkward? I stood up. My sister is stealing my designs and you think it's awkward? Nobody's stealing anything, Harmony said, her voice honey-sweet. We're collaborating, like a family. Show me where my name appears in the presentation materials. Silence. Show me one slide, one document, one piece of marketing material that mentions Quinn Ford. More silence. That's what I thought. I walked out, leaving them staring after me. Chloe was waiting in my apartment when I got home, armed with takeout and a bottle of wine. How bad is it? She asked. They're not even pretending anymore. Harmony's doing the entire presentation. My name won't be mentioned once. What did your lawyer say? That I have a solid case for intellectual property theft, but by the time it goes through the courts, the damage will be done. Chloe poured 2 glasses of wine. So what's the plan? I pulled out my laptop and opened my email. I'm going to give them exactly what they deserve, which is the truth, in the most public way possible. I started typing. The email was addressed to Josh, copied to Harmony, Zane, and every investor on the presentation list. Dear Josh, after careful consideration, I've decided to withdraw from the Walton Vision project effective immediately. As per section 7.3 of my contract, all architectural designs and concepts created during my employment remain my exclusive intellectual property and cannot be used without my written consent. Any presentation of these designs without proper attribution will constitute intellectual property theft and will be pursued to the full extent of the law. Best regards, Quinn Ford. You're really doing this? Chloe asked. My finger hovered over the send button. They made their choice. Now I'm making mine. I hit send. My phone started ringing within minutes. Josh first, then Harmony, then Mom. I let them all go to voicemail. The voicemails were predictable. Josh was panicked. Harmony was furious. Mum was disappointed. Dad's message was the shortest. And Quinn, call me. We need to fix this. Fix this. Like I was the problem. I was deleting the messages when a new email popped up. The sender was HW Vision, Harmony's account. Quinn, I can't believe you're being so petty about this. We're family. Family supports each other. They don't sabotage each other. The presentation is tomorrow. If you try to interfere, you'll be destroying Josh's company and our parents' investment. Is your ego really worth that much? Think about what you're doing. Harmony. I forwarded the email to Jermaine with a note. Still think I need more proof? His response came back immediately. Holy shit, can I quote this? Not yet, but soon. I closed my laptop and looked at Chloe. Tomorrow's going to be interesting. Are you sure about this? Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back. I thought about 32 years of being second best, of being the smart one, the practical one, the one who cleaned up everyone else's messes, of watching Harmony get credit for things she'd never earned while I got dismissed for achievements that were actually mine. I'm sure. The night before the gala, I sat in my car outside Josh's office building at 11 p.m. The security guard had left an hour ago. I knew because I'd been watching. Josh's keycard was still in my purse from when he'd asked me to grab files from his office last week. He'd never asked for it back. The building was dark except for the emergency lighting. My footsteps echoed in the empty lobby as I made my way to the elevator. Josh's computer was still logged in, sloppy but typical. I plugged in my flash drive and navigated to the presentation folder. There it was. Walton Vision, Investor Presentation, Final.ptx. I opened it. Slide after slide of my designs, my concepts, my sustainability innovations. Every single one credited to Harmony Walton, Creative Director, or the Walton Vision Team. My name appeared exactly once, in tiny font, on slide 47. Special thanks to consulting architect Q Ford. Q Ford. Like I was some random contractor they'd hired. I replaced their presentation file with my own version. Same slides, same designs, but with one crucial difference. Every slide now included a watermark with my contract clause about intellectual property rights. And I'd added a few new slides at the end. Then I uploaded everything to the backup drive they'd be using for the projector, just in case. My phone buzzed with a text from Chloe. You sure about this? Too late now. I typed back. The next morning, I submitted my resignation letter. Not by email this time. I hand-delivered it to Josh's assistant at 8 a.m. sharp. "Quinn!" Josh's voice boomed across the office 20 minutes later. "What the hell is this?" He was waving my resignation letter like it was on fire. "It's my resignation, effective immediately." "You can't resign. The presentation is tonight. Watch me." Harmony appeared at Josh's shoulder, her face flushed. "Quinn, this is insane. You're going to ruin everything over what? Your name on a PowerPoint slide?" "It's not about a PowerPoint slide. It's about 32 years of being invisible." "You're not invisible," Josh said desperately. "You're valued. You're appreciated." "Then why isn't my name on anything?" Silence. That's what I thought. I walked past them toward my closet office to pack up my things. Harmony followed me. "Mom and Dad are going to be devastated," she said. "They'll get over it." "Will they?" "Dad invested $50,000 in this project. Mum's been telling all her friends about our big family success story." I stopped packing. "Dad invested money." Harmony's smile was sharp. "Oh, you didn't know? Mum and Dad are silent partners. This isn't just Josh's company anymore. It's a family business." My stomach dropped. If the project failed, my parents would lose their investment, their retirement savings. "You're lying." "Ask them yourself. They're coming to the presentation tonight. Front row seats to watch their investment pay off." I pulled out my phone and called Dad. "Quinn, sweetheart, I was just about to call you. Josh told me about this resignation nonsense." "Dad, did you invest money in Josh's company?" A pause. "Well, yes. We wanted to support the family, support you." "How much?" "That's not important. What's important is that you're trying to sabotage your sister's presentation over some petty—" "How much, Dad?" Another pause. 50,000. "But Quinn, this isn't about money. This is about family unity." I hung up and stared at Harmony. She was still smiling. "So you see," she said, "this isn't just about you and me anymore. If you destroy this presentation, you're destroying Mom and Dad too. You planned this. I plan to succeed, just like I always do." That afternoon, Zane cornered me in the parking lot as I was leaving. "Quinn, wait, we need to talk. I don't work here anymore, remember? Look, I know this situation is messed up, but there are a lot of people depending on this project. Employees, investors, your parents. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you let Harmony steal my work." Zane ran his hands through his hair. "I tried to stop it. I told Josh this was a bad idea, but Harmony, she's very persuasive." "She's very pretty, you mean?" "That's not what I—" He stopped. "Okay, yeah, maybe that's part of it. But Quinn, if this presentation fails tonight, the company goes under. Everyone loses their jobs. Including you, including me." I studied his face. He looked genuinely worried, genuinely sorry. "Then you better hope Harmony's as good at presenting as she thinks she is." I got in my car and drove away, leaving him standing in the parking lot. At home, I found Mum and Dad waiting on my front porch. They were dressed for the gala. Dad in his best suit, Mum in the dress she'd worn to my college graduation. "We need to talk," Dad said. "About what? About how you invested in Josh's company without telling me? About how you're perfectly fine with Harmony stealing my work as long as it makes you money?" "That's not fair," Mum said. "We invested because we believe in this project. We believe in you. You believe in Harmony. You always have." Dad stepped forward. "Quinn, I'm asking you, as your father, don't make a scene tonight. Don't embarrass the family. Let Harmony do her presentation, and we'll sort out the credit issues later." "Later? When? After she's built her entire career on my designs?" "If that's what it takes," Dad said quietly. I stared at him. This man who'd raised me, who'd supposedly loved me, was asking me to sacrifice my professional integrity for the family's financial gain. "Get off my porch," I said. "Quinn, get off my porch, now." They left without another word. I watched them drive away, then pulled out my phone and texted Jermaine. "It's time. The story is yours." His response was immediate. "I'll be there tonight." The gala was in 3 hours. I had just enough time to get ready for the show. The Marriott ballroom glittered like something out of a movie. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, servers weaving between tables with champagne flutes. I'd never seen Josh's company throw an event this elaborate. I slipped in through the back entrance, wearing a simple black dress that would help me blend into the shadows. The room was packed, at least 200 people. Investors, city council members, reporters, and half the architecture community in town. "Quinn!" Chloe appeared at my elbow, looking stunning in navy blue. "I wasn't sure you'd actually show up." "Wouldn't miss it for the world." "Are you okay? You look determined." At the front of the room, a massive screen displayed the Walton Vision logo. My sustainable community designs rotated in a slideshow behind it, each one labelled with Harmony's name. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the future of sustainable living." Josh's voice boomed through the sound system. He stood at the podium in a tuxedo, looking more confident than I'd seen him in months. "Tonight, we're proud to present a revolutionary approach to urban development. A vision that will transform how we think about community, sustainability, and the way we live." Applause rippled through the crowd. I spotted my parents at the front table, Mum beaming with pride, Dad checking his phone. But before we begin, I want to introduce the brilliant mind behind this project. A visionary who saw what others couldn't. Please welcome the creative director of Walton Vision, my wife, Harmony Walton. The crowd erupted as Harmony glided onto the stage. She wore a stunning emerald gown that caught the light with every step. Her smile was radiant, confident, like she'd been born for this moment. "Thank you so much," she said into the microphone, her voice carrying perfectly through the room. When I first envisioned this project, I dreamed of communities that didn't just house people, but nurtured them, spaces that worked with nature instead of against it. I felt sick. Those were my words from my original project proposal. "The Walton Vision isn't just about buildings," Harmony continued. "It's about creating a legacy, a sustainable future for our children and grandchildren." More applause. Someone at a nearby table whispered, "She's incredible, so articulate." Jermaine materialised beside me, notebook in hand. "This is really happening." "Just wait," I said. Harmony clicked to the first design slide. "Let me show you what sustainable living really looks like." The screen filled with my integrated solar design, the one I'd spent months perfecting. The audience murmured appreciatively. "This rooftop garden system doesn't just provide food for residents," Harmony explained. "It creates a micro-ecosystem that supports local wildlife while reducing the building's carbon footprint by 40%. She was reading directly from my technical notes, word for word. "Brilliant," someone behind me said. "Absolutely brilliant." I pulled out my phone and opened the presentation control app I'd installed earlier. The backup projector system was still connected to my account. "And here's my favourite innovation," Harmony said, clicking to the next slide. "Integrated rainwater collection that—" The screen flickered. Harmony paused, glancing back at the display. "Technical difficulties," she laughed. "The hazards of live presentations." The screen flickered again, then went black for a moment before displaying a new slide. This one showed my original contract, zoomed in on section 7.3. "All architectural designs, concepts, and related intellectual property created by Quinn Ford during the term of this agreement shall remain the exclusive property of Quinn Ford, with full attribution required for any public presentation or marketing materials." The room went silent. Harmony's smile faltered. "I'm sorry, there seems to be some kind of—" The next slide appeared. My resignation letter dated that morning. "After careful consideration, I've decided to withdraw from the Walton Vision project, effective immediately. Any presentation of these designs without proper attribution will constitute intellectual property theft." Murmurs started rippling through the crowd. I saw Josh frantically gesturing to someone at the back of the room, probably trying to get the AV tech to fix the malfunction. The third slide was a screenshot of Harmony's email from the night before. "I can't believe you're being so petty about this. We're family." "What's happening?" someone asked loudly. The fourth slide was a side-by-side comparison, my original design files with timestamps next to the presentation slides crediting Harmony. The murmurs turned into full conversations. People were pulling out their phones, taking pictures of the screen. "Ladies and gentlemen," Harmony said, her voice shaking slightly, "there seems to be some kind of technical malfunction. If we could just—" The final slide appeared. It was simple, just text on a black background. "The Walton Vision designs were created by Quinn Ford, licensed architect. Ms. Walton has no architectural training or design experience. This presentation constitutes intellectual property theft. The room erupted. Investors were standing up, talking loudly to each other. Reporters were scribbling notes and taking photos. I saw Zane at a side table, his head in his hands. "This is," Harmony stammered into the microphone, "this is some kind of sabotage. My sister is trying to—" "Your sister?" a voice called out from the crowd. "The architect whose work you're presenting?" Harmony's face went white. She looked out into the audience, searching for a friendly face, for someone to help her. Her eyes found mine. For a moment, we just stared at each other across the crowded room. 32 years of sisterhood, of competition, of being compared and measured against each other, all crystallised in that single look. Then I smiled and gave her a little wave. "Quinn!" Dad's voice cut through the chaos. He was standing at his table, pointing at me. "Quinn! Stop this right now!" But it was too late. The damage was done. The truth was out. Jermaine squeezed my arm. "Holy shit! Quinn, you actually did it!" "Yeah," I said, watching as Josh rushed onto the stage to try to salvage the situation. "I actually did." The screen went black, but the chaos continued. People were leaving, investors were demanding explanations, and somewhere in the crowd, my parents were realising that their golden child had just been exposed as a fraud. I turned and walked toward the exit, leaving the wreckage behind me. I almost made it to the exit. "Quinn Elizabeth Ford!" Dad's voice boomed across the ballroom like a thunderclap. The entire room turned to look as he strode toward me, his face purple with rage. "How dare you!" he said when he reached me. "How dare you humiliate your family like this?" "I didn't humiliate anyone," I told the truth. "You destroyed your sister's career. You destroyed Josh's company. You destroyed everything we've worked for." The crowd was watching us like we were dinner theatre. Phones were out, recording everything. I could see Jermaine scribbling furiously in his notebook. "Dad, please," I said quietly. "Let's not do this here. No. You wanted a public spectacle. You got one. Tell me, Quinn, was it worth it? Was destroying your family worth your precious ego?" "My ego?" My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "This was never about ego. This was about Harmony stealing my work. She was helping you. She was giving you opportunities you never would have had on your own." The words hit me like a physical blow. Around us, the crowd had gone completely silent. Opportunities I never would have had? Dad, I'm a licensed architect. I've won awards. I've built a career without anyone's help. A career nobody cares about. A career that doesn't matter. Harmony could have made your designs famous, could have given them the recognition they deserved, and you threw it all away because you couldn't stand to see her succeed. Succeed at what? Lying. Stealing. Mum appeared at Dad's shoulder, tears streaming down her face. "Quinn, how could you do this to us? We invested everything in this project. Everything." "You invested in a lie." "We invested in family," Dad shouted. "Something you clearly don't understand." Behind him, I could see Harmony still on the stage, surrounded by Josh and several other people who were clearly trying to do damage control. She looked small and lost, nothing like the confident woman who'd been presenting my work 5 minutes ago. "You want to know what I understand?" I said, my voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "I understand that for 32 years I've been the daughter you settled for. The smart one. The practical one. The one who cleans up everyone else's messes while Harmony gets the credit. That's not true. It is true. When I got into MIT, you said it was nice, but not as impressive as Harmony making Homecoming Queen. When I won the Sustainable Design Award, you said it was a shame more people didn't know about it. When I started my own firm, you asked when I was going to find a husband." The crowd was completely riveted now. This wasn't just about intellectual property theft anymore. This was a family imploding in real time. But the moment you needed my skills, suddenly I mattered. Suddenly I was valuable. Until it came time to give me credit, and then I was back to being invisible. "Quinn?" Mom started. "No, Mom, I'm done. I'm done being the daughter you're embarrassed by. I'm done pretending that Harmony's success is more important than my integrity. I'm done being small so she can be big." Dad's face was getting redder. You selfish, ungrateful. Mr. Ford. Jermaine stepped forward, his press badge visible. Jermaine Ray, Metro Weekly. Would you care to comment on your daughter's allegations of intellectual property theft? Dad whirled around. Who the hell are you? I'm the journalist who's been investigating this story. Your daughter Quinn provided extensive documentation of the theft, including email communications and file access logs. There was no theft. This is a family business arrangement. A family business arrangement where one sister takes credit for another sister's professional work. Without compensation or attribution, that's not... Dad stopped, realising he was being recorded. Actually, it is exactly what happened, I said, and I have proof. Zane appeared at my elbow, looking haggard. Quinn, can we talk? Privately. Anything you want to say to me, you can say in front of everyone. He glanced around at the crowd, then back at me. The investors are pulling out. All of them. The project is dead. A collective gasp went up from the crowd. And, I said, and Josh's company is finished. We're filing for bankruptcy on Monday. Mum let out a sob. Our investment. Our retirement savings. That's not my problem, I said. It is your problem, Dad exploded. You did this. You destroyed everything. I exposed the truth. If the truth destroyed everything, maybe everything was built on lies. You're not my daughter, Dad said, his voice shaking with rage. No daughter of mine would do this to her family. The words hung in the air between us. Around us, the crowd was completely silent, waiting to see what I would say. I looked at this man who had raised me, who had taught me to ride a bike and helped with my homework and driven me to architecture camp. This man who had just disowned me in front of 200 people because I refused to let my sister steal my life's work. Good, I said finally, because I'm tired of being your daughter. I turned and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear Dad calling my name, but I didn't look back. Jermaine caught up with me in the lobby. Quinn, wait, I need a statement. You just got one, I said, pushing through the hotel doors into the cool night air. Where are you going? I looked back at the hotel, at the chaos I'd left behind, at the family I'd just lost. Home, I said. I'm going home. The story broke online before I even got home. Architect exposes sister's theft at gala presentation was trending on Twitter by midnight. The video of Dad disowning me had been viewed 50,000 times. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, architecture firms, random people who'd seen the story. I turned it off and poured myself a very large glass of wine. The doorbell rang at 7 a.m. I opened it to find a woman in an expensive suit holding a briefcase. Quinn Ford, I'm Sarah Martinez from Pinnacle Design Group. We need to talk. I knew Pinnacle. They were one of the most prestigious architecture firms in the country. We saw what happened last night, Sarah said, settling into my living room chair. We've been following your work for months. That sustainable community design? It's revolutionary. Thanks, but I'm not really in the mood for job interviews right now. This isn't a job interview. This is an offer. We want to buy your designs, all of them, and we want you to lead our new sustainable development division. I stared at her. You want to hire me after what happened last night? We want to hire you because of what happened last night. You stood up for your work. You refused to be silenced. That's exactly the kind of architect we need. The offer was more money than I'd ever imagined making. My own team, my own projects, my name on everything. I need to think about it, I said. Of course, but don't think too long. After last night, you're going to have a lot of offers. She was right. By noon, I'd heard from 6 different firms. My email was flooded with interview requests and collaboration offers. Chloe came over with lunch and found me staring at my laptop in disbelief. Holy shit, Quinn, look at this. She showed me her phone. Harmony's Instagram is gone, completely deleted. I pulled up social media. The backlash was brutal. Walton Vision was trending, but not in a good way. People were calling Harmony a fraud, a thief, a fake. Someone had created a meme comparing her to other famous plagiarists. This is getting out of hand, I said. Is it? She stole your work. She tried to build a career on your talent. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Harmony. Please call me. I showed Chloe the message. Are you going to? I don't know. The phone rang. Unknown number. Quinn? Harmony's voice was barely a whisper. Please don't hang up. What do you want? I want to apologise. I want to explain. There's nothing to explain. You stole my work. I know I did. But Quinn, I'm getting death threats. People are calling me a fraud, a fake. I can't leave my house. I felt a flicker of something that might have been sympathy. That's not my fault, isn't it? You could have handled this privately. You didn't have to destroy me publicly. Like you destroyed me privately for 32 years. Silence. Harmony, you made your choice. You chose to steal my work, to take credit for my ideas, to build your reputation on my talent. Now you're facing the consequences. I'm your sister. You are my sister. Sisters don't steal from each other. I hung up. The next morning, Jermaine's article ran on the front page of Metro Weekly. The Sister in the Shadows. How family favouritism led to professional theft. It was devastating and thorough, with quotes from industry experts about intellectual property rights and the importance of attribution in creative fields. But it also included something I hadn't expected. Interviews with other architects who'd worked with me over the years, praising my innovation and integrity. Quinn Ford is one of the most talented, sustainable architects of her generation, one quote read. It's a travesty that her own family tried to erase her contributions. My phone rang. This time it was a number I recognised. Quinn, it's Zane. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but I need to tell you something. What? Josh is facing criminal charges, fraud, intellectual property theft, investor fraud. The DA's office wants to talk to you. And I want you to know that I'm testifying on your behalf. I have emails, recordings, documentation of everything they did. I should have stopped it earlier, but I'm stopping it now. Why? Because what they did was wrong. And because you deserved better from all of us. That afternoon, I was working in my home office when the doorbell rang again. This time, it was Dad. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. His hair was dishevelled, his clothes wrinkled. Can I come in? I stepped aside and let him enter. I saw the news, he said. About the criminal charges, about the bankruptcy. And I owe you an apology. A real one. I waited. I was wrong, Quinn. About everything. About dismissing your career. About favouring Harmony. About what I said at the gala. His voice cracked. You are my daughter. You've always been my daughter. And I'm proud of you. Are you? Or are you just saying that because Harmony's career is over and mine is taking off? He flinched. I deserve that. Yes, you do. I know I can't undo what I said, what I did, but I want to try to make it right. How? However you'll let me. I looked at this man who'd raised me, who'd hurt me, who was finally seeing me clearly for the first time in my life. It's going to take time, Dad. A lot of time. I have time. And it's going to take more than words. I know. And I'm never going to be the daughter who makes herself small so someone else can be big. I wouldn't want you to be. I nodded. Okay, we can try. He smiled, and for the first time in years it felt genuine. My phone buzzed with an email notification. The sender was anonymous, but the subject line made me smile. You were always the real visionary. Don't let them make you small again. I looked up at Dad, then at the job offers spread across my desk, then at the future stretching out in front of me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't living in anyone's shadow, and it felt like coming home.
Trinity, we need to talk. Those 5 words shattered my world at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was arranging the last of the autumn chrysanthemums I'd just brought in from the garden I'd planted from nothing but clay and determination 20 years ago. My name is Trinity, and until that moment, I thought I knew exactly who I was. Devoted wife, loving mother, keeper of this home that I'd poured my soul into creating. Caleb stood in the doorway of our living room, the one I'd decorated by hand with furniture I'd refinished myself and curtains I'd sewn during late nights when the kids were small. His face wore an expression I'd never seen before. Cold, distant, like he was looking at a stranger. What's wrong? I set down the vase, my hands already trembling. Is it one of the kids? Your mother? Sit down. I perched on the edge of our sofa, the one I'd reupholstered 3 times over the years because we couldn't afford to replace it. Caleb remained standing, towering over me like a judge about to deliver a sentence. I'm leaving you, Trinity. I've fallen in love with someone else. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Caleb, what are you talking about? Her name is Tori. She makes me feel alive again. Young, like I matter. You matter to me, to Haley and Anthony, we're your family. He shook his head, and I saw something cruel flicker in his eyes. This marriage has been dead for years. You know it, I know it. I'm done pretending. Pretending? My voice cracked. I've given you everything. I gave up college for you, gave up my career plans, gave up... Nobody asked you to do that. His tone was ice. That was your choice. I stared at him. This man I'd loved since I was 23. This man whose children I'd raised, whose dreams I'd supported even when it meant sacrificing my own. Caleb, please, we can work through this. We can go to counseling. I don't want to work through it. I want out. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. I've already filed the papers. You have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. 30 days? I shot to my feet. This is my home, too. Our children live here. It's my house, Trinity. My name on the deed, my mortgage payments. The kids can visit you wherever you end up. Before I could respond, the front door opened. My blood turned to ice as a young woman walked in like she owned the place. Blonde, beautiful, probably half my age. She looked around my living room with calculating eyes, already mentally rearranging everything I'd built. You must be Trinity. Her voice was honey sweet with an edge of steel. I'm Tori. I've heard so much about you. I couldn't speak. This woman, this girl, was standing in my home, looking at my husband like he was her prize. Tori's going to be staying here while you transition, Caleb said, not even having the decency to look ashamed. You're moving her in while I'm still here? The words came out as a whisper. It's easier this way, less disruptive for everyone. Tori smiled at me, and it was the most condescending expression I'd ever seen. Don't worry, Trinity. I'll take good care of everything. The house, Caleb, the kids when they're here. You don't need to worry about any of it anymore. My phone rang, cutting through the suffocating silence. Caleb's mother's name flashed on the screen. Answer it, Caleb said. She already knows. With shaking fingers, I swiped to accept the call. Well, Sandra's voice dripped with satisfaction. I always knew this day would come. 20 years of you playing house, thinking you'd landed yourself a meal ticket. Guess what, sweetheart? The gravy train just derailed. Sandra, Save it. I never liked you. Never thought you were good enough for my son. At least now he's found someone with some class. Someone who can actually contribute something besides playing housewife. The line went dead. I stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, while Caleb and Tori watched me like I was some pathetic creature they'd found wounded on the side of the road. I think I'll go start dinner, Tori announced brightly. Trinity, you don't mind if I use your kitchen, do you? Oh, wait. I guess it's my kitchen now. She disappeared down the hall, her heels clicking on the hardwood floors I'd refinished myself last spring. Caleb cleared his throat. I'll be staying at a hotel tonight. Give you time to process all this. But Trinity? He paused at the doorway. Don't make this harder than it has to be. You've got 30 days. Use them wisely. And then I was alone in my living room, surrounded by 20 years of memories, 20 years of love and sacrifice and dreams, all of it crumbling around me like autumn leaves. I walked to the window and stared out at my garden, at the roses I nursed through harsh winters and the vegetable patch that had fed my family countless meals. Everything I'd built, everything I'd given, dismissed like it meant nothing. But as I stood there, something shifted inside me, something cold and calculating that I'd never felt before. They thought I was broken. They thought I was powerless. They had no idea what they just unleashed. The next morning, I made sure to look exactly how they expected me to look, defeated. I shuffled around the kitchen in my oldest robe, hair unwashed, eyes red from crying. When Tori emerged from what used to be my bedroom, she found me staring blankly at a cup of cold coffee. "Oh, honey," she cooed, but her eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "You look terrible. Maybe you should think about getting some help." "Professional help, I mean. I don't know what I'm going to do," I whispered, letting my voice crack. 20 years. How do I start over?" "Well, you're still youngish," she said, opening my refrigerator like she'd been living here for years. "Maybe you can find a nice little apartment somewhere. Get a job at a grocery store or something." Haley stumbled into the kitchen, took one look at me, and rolled her eyes. "God, Mom, could you be any more pathetic?" "Haley, no, seriously. Dad told me what happened. How you've just been existing all these years, not contributing anything real. At least Tori has her own career, her own money." The words hit like slaps, but I forced myself to crumble visibly. "I gave up everything for this family." "Nobody asked you to," Haley snapped, echoing her father's words. "That's not Dad's fault. That's not our fault. That's on you." Anthony appeared in the doorway, 16 and awkward, looking between his sister and me with confusion. "What's going on?" "Mom's having a breakdown because she can't handle being a grown-up," Haley said coldly. "That's enough." Anthony's voice was quiet but firm. "Leave her alone." "Whatever. I'm staying at Dad's hotel tonight. I can't deal with this drama." Haley grabbed her backpack and stormed out. Anthony lingered for a moment, looking like he wanted to say something, but Tori's presence seemed to intimidate him. He mumbled something about being late for school and left. "Kids are so resilient," Tori said cheerfully, pouring herself orange juice from my carton. "They'll adjust to the new normal in no time." The moment she left for work, I called Ivy. "Trinity? Thank God. I've been worried sick since you texted me last night. Are you okay? Can you come over? I need someone." "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Ivy arrived with coffee and donuts, taking one look at my appearance and pulling me into a fierce hug. "That bastard," she muttered. "That absolute bastard. And his mother calling you like that? I should drive over there and—" "Ivy, sit down. I need to tell you something." She studied my face carefully. "You look like hell, but your eyes? There's something different about your eyes." I led her to the kitchen table and sat across from her. "I need you to think I'm falling apart. Everyone needs to think that." "What are you talking about?" "The house, Ivy. Everyone assumes it's Caleb's because his name is on the deed. But the land underneath it, I bought that with my inheritance from my grandmother." Ivy's eyebrows shot up. "The inheritance from when we were 25? But that was 18 years ago, before we built this house. I used every penny of that money to buy this plot of land. Caleb wanted to put everything in his name for tax reasons, said it would be simpler. I was young and stupid and in love, so I agreed to let the house deed be in his name, but I never transferred the land deed." "Trinity," Ivy's voice was barely a whisper, "are you saying—" "I'm saying he can't kick me out of a house that's sitting on my property. And all those renovations he's been talking about, all those loans he's been taking out using the house as collateral, he's been borrowing against a house he doesn't actually own." Ivy stared at me for a long moment, then started laughing. "Oh my God. Oh my God. Does he know?" "He has no idea. Nobody does. I've been playing the perfect broken housewife for 24 hours, and they're all eating it up. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to let them dig their own graves first. Let them get comfortable. Let them make plans. Let them spend money they don't have on improvements to property they don't own." My phone buzzed with a text from Sandra. "Heard you're taking this hard. Good. Maybe now you'll learn some humility." I showed Ivy the message. She shook her head in disgust. "That woman has hated you since day one." I know. And now she thinks she's won. I stood up and walked to my bedroom closet, pulling out a small lockbox from behind my winter coats. But I have something she doesn't know about. I opened the box and pulled out a manila folder. Inside was the original deed to the land with my name, and only my name, on it. I need to call my lawyer, I said, pulling out my phone. It's time to remind everyone exactly who owns what around here. Ivy grinned. This is going to be beautiful. Atticus? It's Trinity Sanders. I need to see you as soon as possible. It's about my property. Yes, I said my property. We need to talk. By day 3, Tori had completely taken over. I watched from the kitchen window as she directed movers carrying in her furniture. My grandmother's antique coffee table, the one I lovingly restored, was being hauled to the curb like garbage. Excuse me, I said, stepping outside. That table. Oh, that old thing? Tori waved dismissively. It doesn't match my aesthetic. I'm going for more of a modern vibe. But it's been in my family for... Trinity! Her voice turned sharp. This is hard enough without you clinging to every piece of junk. You need to let go. A black sedan pulled into the driveway, and Sandra climbed out carrying shopping bags and a smug smile. Tori, darling. Sandra rushed over, completely ignoring me. I brought you some housewarming gifts, some proper linens for the master bedroom, and I found the most gorgeous throw pillows. Sandra, you're too sweet. Tori accepted the bags like a queen receiving tribute. Well, someone needs to help you make this place feel like a real home again. It's been so stagnant for so long. They walked past me into the house, chattering about paint colors and furniture arrangements. I followed them inside, maintaining my defeated posture. Mom? Haley appeared at the top of the stairs. Can you please just go somewhere? Tori's trying to organize, and you're just standing around looking miserable. This is still my home for another few weeks, I said quietly. Barely, Sandra snorted. And frankly, the sooner you accept reality, the better off everyone will be. Tori emerged from the living room, holding one of my photo albums. What should I do with all these old pictures? There are boxes of them. Throw them away, Haley said. Mom's obsessed with living in the past anyway. Those are family photos, I protested. Pictures of you and Anthony growing up. I have the ones I want on my phone, Haley shrugged. The rest is just clutter. I watched Tori dump 20 years of memories into a garbage bag, each photo a piece of my heart being discarded. You know what this place needs? Sandra announced, surveying the living room. A complete renovation. Fresh paint, new flooring. Maybe knock down that wall to open up the space. Caleb was just saying the same thing, Tori beamed. He's already gotten quotes from contractors. My ears perked up. Contractors? Oh, yes, Sandra said gleefully. Real improvements, not just your little craft projects and garage sale finds. How much are these improvements going to cost? I asked, trying to sound worried about Caleb's finances rather than thrilled. Don't you worry about that, Tori said condescendingly. Caleb knows how to handle money, unlike some people. That evening, I sat in Atticus's office while he reviewed the documents I'd brought. This is remarkable, Trinity, he said, adjusting his glasses. The land deed is absolutely clear. You are the sole owner of the property. The house may be in Caleb's name, but it's sitting on your land. Oh, what does that mean exactly? It means he's essentially been your tenant for 18 years without realizing it. And if he's taking out loans using the house as collateral, Atticus shook his head. He's borrowing against an asset he doesn't actually control. Can I evict him? Technically, yes. But Trinity, I need you to understand something. This kind of legal action, it's going to get ugly. Your family will never forgive you. My family already doesn't forgive me for existing. Atticus leaned back in his chair. What exactly are you hoping to accomplish here? I want them to understand that I'm not some pathetic housewife they can discard. I want them to know that everything they think they're taking from me, I never lost it in the first place. And the financial consequences for Caleb? That's his problem. He should have thought about that before he decided to humiliate me. The next morning, I intercepted the mail before anyone else could get to it. Mixed in with the usual bills was an invoice from a contractor, $47,000 for kitchen renovations, with a note that work would begin next week. I photographed the invoice and texted it to Atticus with a message. They're spending money they don't have on property they don't own. How much rope should I give them? His response came back immediately. Let them hang themselves. The bigger the debt, the sweeter the justice. That afternoon, I was folding laundry when I overheard Tori on the phone in the living room. Kylie, you should see this place. It's going to be gorgeous once we gut it. Caleb's already approved a $50,000 renovation budget. She paused, listening. No, the ex-wife is completely clueless. She's just moping around like a kicked dog. Honestly, I almost feel sorry for her. Almost. Another pause. Trust me, by the time we're done with this place, it'll be worth twice what it is now, and she'll be long gone, probably living in some sad little studio apartment. I smiled as I folded Caleb's shirts. If only she knew that every dollar they spent was just making my eventual victory more expensive for them. My phone buzzed with a text from Ivy. How's the performance going? I typed back, they just approved a $50,000 renovation on my land. Holy shit. You're going to destroy them. They're destroying themselves. I'm just letting them. The contractors arrived on Monday morning at 7 a.m. sharp. I made sure to be in the kitchen, looking appropriately devastated when they started ripping out my cabinets, the ones I'd painted by hand 3 summers ago when money was tight. Ma'am, the foreman approached me hesitantly. We're going to need you to clear out all your dishes and cookware. We're gutting the whole kitchen. Of course, I whispered, letting my voice shake. I'll pack everything up. Tori swept in, wearing a hard hat like she was some kind of construction supervisor. How long do you think this will take? 6 weeks, maybe 8, the foreman replied. Depends on what we find when we open up these walls. Perfect. Trinity, you might want to think about staying somewhere else during construction. It's going to be loud and messy. I don't have anywhere to go, I said, making sure my voice carried just the right note of desperation. Well, that's not really our problem anymore, is it? Tori's smile was razor sharp. I retreated to the living room where Anthony was hunched over his laptop, noise-canceling headphones clamped over his ears. The sound of sledgehammers echoed through the house. This is insane, he muttered, pulling off his headphones. They're destroying everything. It's not our house anymore, honey, I said softly. But it's our home. His voice cracked. All my memories are here. My height marks on the doorframe, the fort we built in the basement. I know, baby. I know. Haley bounded down the stairs, completely unbothered by the chaos. Isn't this exciting? Tori showed me the plans. The new kitchen is going to be amazing. What about Mom's herb garden by the window? Anthony asked. She's been growing those plants for years. Oh, that's all getting ripped out, Haley said dismissively. Tori wants to put in a breakfast nook with built-in seating. I watched Anthony's face crumple and had to bite my tongue to keep from saying something I'd regret. My phone rang. Caleb's name flashed on the screen. Trinity, I need you to sign some papers. What kind of papers? Loan documents. I'm taking out a home equity line of credit to cover the renovations. How much? $75,000. Don't worry, it won't affect your settlement. This is all on me. I had to cover the phone to hide my sharp intake of breath. $75,000, on top of the $50,000 he'd already committed to. Trinity, you there? Yes, I'm here. When do you need me to sign? Tonight. The bank requires both spouses' signatures, even though we're separated. Of course, whatever you need. After I hung up, I immediately called Atticus. He wants me to sign loan documents for $75,000, I said, keeping my voice low. Don't sign anything. If you're not on the deed, you're not responsible for the debt. Let him forge your signature if he's desperate enough. What if the bank won't approve it without my signature? Then he'll find another way. Men like Caleb always do. They'll use credit cards, personal loans, whatever it takes. The important thing is that none of it is your responsibility. That evening, Ivy came over with Chinese takeout and wine. "This place looks like a war zone," she said, surveying the plastic sheeting and construction debris. "Wait until you hear the latest." I told her about the loan documents and Caleb's growing debt. $125,000 on renovations. Ivy's eyes went wide. That's more than most people's annual salary. And that's just what I know about. There could be more. "Trinity, you need to see this." Ivy pulled out her phone and showed me a social media post from someone named Kylie. I did some digging on Tori's friends. The post was a screenshot of a text conversation. Tori's name was clearly visible at the top. "Girl, you hit the jackpot with this one. House, husband, instant family, and the best part? The ex-wife is so pathetic she's just rolling over and taking it." "There's more," Ivy said, scrolling down. "Look at this." Another message from Tori. "I'm already pregnant. Haven't told Caleb yet, but once I do, I'll be set for life. Child support, alimony if things don't work out. This is better than winning the lottery." I stared at the screen, my blood turning to ice. She's pregnant? Or lying about it to secure her position. Either way, she's playing a long game. "Show me the rest." Ivy scrolled through more messages. Tori bragging about the renovations, about how she was going to completely erase any trace of me from the house, how she'd convinced Caleb that I was worthless, that I'd never contributed anything meaningful to the family. "There's one more thing," Ivy said quietly. "I found out why she's so desperate for financial security. She showed me a public records search. Tori had filed for bankruptcy 2 years ago. Credit card debt, student loans, a repossessed car. She's broke, Trinity. Completely broke. Caleb isn't just her meal ticket. He's her life raft." I sat back, processing everything. So she's using him just as much as he thinks he's using me. More. At least you actually loved him. The sound of power tools started up again from the kitchen, even though it was almost 8 p.m. "They're working late tonight," I observed. "Probably trying to finish before you change your mind about leaving." I smiled, the first genuine smile I'd felt in weeks. "Oh, I'm not changing my mind about anything. I'm just getting started." My phone buzzed with a text from Atticus. "Court date is set for next Friday. Are you ready for this?" I typed back, "More than ready. Let them finish their renovations first. I want them to see exactly what they're losing." Ivy raised her wine glass. "To Trinity, the woman who's about to teach everyone a lesson they'll never forget." "To Justice," I corrected, clinking my glass against hers. "Long overdue." 2 weeks later, I found Tori wearing my grandmother's pearl necklace. She was standing in front of the hallway mirror, admiring herself while contractors hammered away in the background. The necklace had been in my jewelry box, the one I'd specifically told her was off limits. "That's not yours," I said quietly. She turned, not even looking embarrassed. "Oh, this old thing? Caleb said I could borrow it. It goes perfectly with my dress for tonight. It belonged to my grandmother. Well, now it belongs to me. Everything in this house does." She adjusted the clasp with deliberate slowness. "You really should start accepting reality, Trinity." Before I could respond, Sandra's voice rang out from the living room. "Tori, darling, come see what I brought you." I followed Tori into the living room, where Sandra was unpacking a box of my china, the set I'd inherited from my mother. "I thought you might want to use the good dishes for entertaining," Sandra said, completely ignoring my presence. "No point in letting them gather dust." "Sandra, those aren't yours to give away," I said, my voice stronger than it had been in weeks. "Oh, please," Sandra scoffed. "You're leaving anyway. What are you going to do? Take everything with you to your studio apartment?" "I haven't found an apartment yet." "Well, you better hurry up. Caleb's patience is wearing thin." As if summoned by his mother's words, Caleb appeared in the doorway. His face was harder than I'd ever seen it. "Trinity, we need to talk. Now." He led me to his study, the room where I used to help him with his paperwork, where we'd planned our children's futures, where we dreamed together. "This has gone on long enough," he said, closing the door behind us. "You're making everyone uncomfortable with this performance." Performance? The moping, the crying, the way you skulk around like some kind of ghost. It's pathetic, and it's affecting the kids. I'm grieving the end of my marriage. "You're being dramatic. Look, I'll make this simple for you." He pulled out his checkbook. "I'll give you $10,000 to be out by the end of the week. Cash, no questions asked. $10,000? For 20 years of marriage? It's more than you deserve. You haven't worked in 2 decades. You have no skills, no education worth mentioning. I'm being generous. And if I don't take it?" His eyes went cold. "Then I'll make things very difficult for you. I have lawyers, Trinity. Good ones. I can make sure you get nothing." "You'd really do that? To the mother of your children?" "The mother of my children would have some dignity. She'd accept that this marriage is over and move on with grace." I stared at him, this man I'd loved, and saw a stranger. "I need time to think." "You have until Friday. Take the money and go, or I'll force you out with nothing." That evening, I was packing boxes in my bedroom when I heard voices from the kitchen. The contractors had left for the day, and Tori was on the phone. "Kylie, you should see this place now. The kitchen is going to be gorgeous. Marble countertops, custom cabinets, the works." I crept closer to listen. "No, she still doesn't know about the baby. I'm waiting for the perfect moment to tell Caleb. Maybe after she's gone and we can celebrate properly." My blood ran cold. So it was true. Trust me. Once I'm showing, I'll have him wrapped around my finger completely. Men get so protective when you're carrying their child. I heard footsteps and quickly retreated to my room. A few minutes later, Anthony knocked on my door. "Mom, can I come in?" "Of course, honey." He sat on my bed, looking younger than his 16 years. "I heard Dad talking to you earlier. About the money." "You shouldn't have been listening." "I couldn't help it. He was being really loud." Anthony's hands clenched into fists. "It's not fair, Mom. None of this is fair. Life isn't always fair, sweetheart. But you gave up everything for us, for him, and now he's just throwing you away like garbage." Before I could respond, Haley appeared in the doorway. "Are you guys talking about me behind my back?" "We're not talking about you at all," Anthony said. "Good, because I heard some of the neighbors gossiping about Mom today, about how she's being thrown out like yesterday's trash." Haley's voice was cruel. "It's embarrassing." "Haley," I started. "No, Mom. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of you making our family look pathetic. Just take Dad's money and leave already." "That's enough." Anthony stood up, his face flushed with anger. "How can you talk to her like that?" "Because someone needs to tell her the truth. She's been living in a fantasy world for years, thinking she was so important, so valuable. Well, guess what? She's not. She's our mother. She's a housewife who never grew up. At least Tori has ambition. At least she contributes something." Anthony looked like he wanted to hit his sister. Instead, he turned to me. "Mom, there has to be something you can do, some way to fight back." I looked at my son's desperate face, then at my daughter's cold expression. "What if I told you there was?" "What do you mean?" Anthony asked. Haley rolled her eyes. "Oh, great. Here comes another one of Mom's delusional plans. What if I told you that your father doesn't actually own this house?" Both kids stared at me. Haley's smirk faltered. "What are you talking about?" Anthony whispered. "The land this house sits on? I bought it with my inheritance 18 years ago. Your father's name is on the house deed, but my name is on the land deed. And you can't own a house without owning the land underneath it." Haley's face went white. "That's impossible. Is it? Did you ever wonder why I never seemed worried about money? Why I never panicked when your father talked about taking out loans?" "Mom," Anthony's voice was barely audible. Are you saying... I'm saying that every dollar your father has spent on renovations, every loan he's taken out, every plan he's made, it's all been built on property he doesn't actually control. My phone rang. Atticus's name appeared on the screen. Trinity? It's time. Can you be at my office tomorrow morning at 9? I looked at my children, one hopeful, one horrified, and smiled. I'll be there. What's happening tomorrow? Anthony asked after I hung up. Tomorrow your father learns that actions have consequences. Mom, you can't be serious about this, Haley said, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. Dead serious. And Haley, you might want to start thinking about which parent you really want to live with, because after tomorrow, your father might not have a house to offer you. The conference room at Atticus's law office felt like a courtroom. I sat beside my lawyer, hands folded calmly in my lap, while Caleb paced by the windows. Tori perched in her chair like a queen holding court, and Sandra sat rigid with disapproval radiating from every pore. I don't understand why we need lawyers for this, Caleb said impatiently. Trinity's already agreed to leave. We just need to finalize the settlement terms. Actually, Atticus said, opening his briefcase, Mrs. Trinity requested this meeting to discuss property ownership. Property ownership? Tori laughed. What property? She doesn't own anything. Atticus spread several documents across the conference table. I'm afraid that's not entirely accurate. Caleb stopped pacing. What's this about, Trinity? Sit down, Caleb. All of you. This might take a while. Something in my tone made them all freeze. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't the broken, defeated woman they'd been dismissing. 18 years ago, Atticus began, Trinity used her inheritance to purchase a plot of land. The deed is registered solely in her name. So what? Sandra snapped. That was before they built the house? Exactly. The house that sits on Trinity's land. The room went dead silent. That's impossible, Caleb said slowly. My name is on the house deed. Yes, it is. But a house deed is meaningless without the land deed. You essentially built a house on property you don't own. Tori's face had gone pale. But we've been taking out loans. Yes, the loans. Atticus pulled out another stack of papers. Approximately $125,000 in home equity loans and renovation financing, all using the house as collateral. That's our business, Caleb said, but his voice was shaking. Actually, it's Trinity's business, because every loan you've taken is secured against a house that sits on her land she never gave you permission to use as collateral. This is ridiculous. Sandra stood up. Trinity, stop this nonsense right now. Sit down, Sandra. My voice was ice. You're about to learn what happens when you underestimate the pathetic housewife. Atticus continued. Trinity has the legal right to evict anyone living on her property, including the house itself. You can't evict a house, Tori shrieked. No, but she can evict the people living in it. And since the house was built without a proper land lease agreement, Trinity can claim ownership of any improvements made to her property. Caleb sank into his chair. What are you saying? I'm saying, I spoke for the first time since we'd sat down, that you've spent over $100,000 improving my property without my permission. Trinity, please, Caleb's voice cracked. We can work this out. We're family. Family? I laughed, and it was not a pleasant sound. You threw me away like garbage. Your mother called me a gold digger. Your girlfriend wore my grandmother's jewelry and gave away my mother's china. Where was family then? But the kids, Tori started. The kids will be fine. They can visit their father wherever he ends up living, if he can afford rent after paying back all those loans. Sandra's face was purple with rage. You vindictive little... Careful, Sandra. You're in a lawyer's office. Everything you say can be used against you. Atticus handed Caleb a legal document. This is an eviction notice. You have 30 days to vacate the premises. 30 days? Caleb stared at the paper like it was written in a foreign language. But the renovations aren't even finished. That's unfortunate. Trinity is willing to compensate you for materials at cost, but labor and contractor fees are your responsibility. This is insane, Tori jumped up. You can't just steal our house. I'm not stealing anything. I'm reclaiming my property from squatters. Squatters. Caleb's voice was barely a whisper. What else would you call people living on land they don't own without the owner's permission? Sandra finally found her voice. Trinity, if you do this, you'll destroy your children's lives. They'll never forgive you. My children will adapt. They're resilient, remember? That's what Tori said. But where will we go? Tori was crying now, her composure completely shattered. That's not my problem. You should have thought about that before you decided to play house with my husband in my home. Caleb looked up at me with desperate eyes. Trinity, I'm begging you. Don't do this. I'll call off the divorce. We can work things out. Now you want to work things out? After you've already moved your pregnant girlfriend into my house? The room went dead silent again. How did you? Tori started. I know a lot of things, Tori, including your bankruptcy filing from 2 years ago, including the text messages you sent to Kylie about using Caleb as your meal ticket. Tori's face crumpled. Caleb, I can explain. You're pregnant? Caleb turned to stare at her. When were you going to tell me? I was waiting for the right time. The right time to trap me, you mean? Atticus cleared his throat. If we could return to the matter at hand. Trinity, do you want to proceed with the eviction? I looked around the table at their faces. Caleb's devastation, Tori's panic, Sandra's impotent rage. Yes, proceed with the eviction. I want them out of my house. Trinity, please, Caleb started. You gave me 30 days to leave, Caleb. I'm giving you the same courtesy. The difference is, I actually have the legal right to do it. I stood up, smoothing down my dress. Oh, and one more thing. The locks will be changed tomorrow morning. Don't bother trying to come back for anything you might have forgotten. As I walked toward the door, Sandra's voice followed me. You'll regret this, Trinity. Mark my words. I turned back one last time. The only thing I regret is not doing this 20 years ago. The door closed behind me with a satisfying click. The police escort arrived at exactly 9 a.m. I stood on my front porch, my porch, watching Officer Martinez review the eviction notice, while Caleb, Tori, and Sandra huddled by their cars like refugees. Everything appears to be in order, ma'am, Officer Martinez said. They have until 5 p.m. to remove their belongings. Thank you, officer. Caleb approached the porch, his face haggard. Trinity, please. Can we talk about this privately? We had 20 years to talk privately. You chose to have this conversation in a lawyer's office instead. I made mistakes, I know that. But this is destroying everything. You destroyed everything the moment you brought her into our home. Tori was sobbing by the moving truck, her phone pressed to her ear. Mom, I need somewhere to stay, just temporarily until we figure this out. I couldn't hear the response, but Tori's face crumpled further. What do you mean you don't have room? I'm your daughter. Sandra marched up to me, her face twisted with rage. You think you're so clever, don't you? Well, let me tell you something. I held up my phone, recording. Please, continue. My lawyer loves documentation. Sandra's mouth snapped shut. Mom. Haley's voice came from behind me. I turned to see both my children standing in the doorway, still in their pajamas. What's happening? Anthony asked, looking between the police officer and the moving truck. Your mother is evicting us, Caleb said bitterly. She's throwing her own family out on the street. That's not what's happening, I said calmly. I'm reclaiming my property from people who have no legal right to be here. But Dad lives here, Haley protested, though her voice lacked conviction. Dad lives here because I allowed it. For 20 years I allowed it. That permission has been revoked. Officer Martinez stepped forward. Kids, you're minors. You can stay with your mother or go with your father. Your choice. Haley looked between us, confusion and fear warring on her face. Dad, where are you going to live? We'll figure something out, Caleb said, but his voice was hollow. What about school? What about my friends? You can stay here with me, I said quietly. Both of you. This is still your home. How can you say that? Tori screamed from across the yard. After what you're doing to us? I'm not doing anything to you, Tori. You did this to yourself when you decided to play house with a married man. Anthony stepped closer to me. Mom, is it true? About the land? Yes, it's true. Why didn't you tell us before? Because I hoped your father would come to his senses. I hoped he'd remember that families don't throw each other away. Caleb was loading boxes into his car with shaking hands. 20 years. Trinity? 20 years of marriage. And this is how you end it? I didn't end it, Caleb. You did. I'm just refusing to be the victim of your choices. The moving truck pulled away, half empty. Apparently, they couldn't afford professional movers for everything. Where are we supposed to go? Sandra demanded. I gave up my apartment to help with the renovations. That was your choice, I said. Just like everything else, neighbors had started gathering on the sidewalk, pretending to walk their dogs or check their mail while openly staring at the spectacle. Mrs. Patterson from next door approached hesitantly. Trinity, is everything all right? Everything's fine, Mrs. Patterson. Just some family business. I heard, well, people are saying. She glanced at Caleb loading his car. Is it true about the land deed? It's true. Mrs. Patterson's eyes widened. So all these years, you were the real owner? All these years. And they didn't know? They didn't bother to ask. By noon, most of their belongings were gone. Caleb stood by his packed car, looking at the house like he was seeing it for the first time. The renovations aren't even finished, he said quietly. I'll handle that. With what money? You don't have a job, Trinity. You don't have income. I have this house. I have this land. I have options you never bothered to consider. Tori appeared at his side, her face blotchy from crying. Caleb, we need to go. The hotel won't hold our reservation much longer. A hotel? Haley looked stricken. You're staying in a hotel? Just temporarily, Caleb said, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. What about the baby? Anthony asked suddenly. Everyone turned to stare at him. Tori's pregnant, right? That's what you said yesterday, Mom. Where's a baby supposed to live in a hotel? Tori's face went white. How did you... I heard you on the phone, talking about how you were going to use the baby to control Dad. Caleb's head snapped toward Tori. What? It's not like that, Tori said desperately. Anthony's just a kid. He doesn't understand. I understand plenty, Anthony said, his voice stronger than I'd heard it in months. I understand that you never cared about our family. You just wanted what we had. That's enough, Caleb said, but his voice was defeated. Officer Martinez checked his watch. It's 4:30, folks. Time to wrap this up. Caleb looked at me one last time. Trinity, Goodbye, Caleb. He got in his car without another word. Tori climbed into the passenger seat, still crying. Sandra squeezed into the back, muttering curses under her breath. As their car pulled out of the driveway, Haley burst into tears. Mom, what have you done? I put my arm around her shoulders. I've taken back what was always mine, sweetheart. And now, we're going to figure out what comes next. Anthony stood beside me, watching the car disappear down the street. Are you okay, Mom? I looked at my house, with its half-finished kitchen and scattered moving boxes, my children beside me, and the neighbors still whispering on the sidewalk. I'm better than okay, I said. I'm free. 3 weeks after the eviction, I found a letter slipped under my front door. Mom, it said in Anthony's careful handwriting, I'm sorry I ever doubted you. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you sooner. I'm sorry I let them make you feel like you didn't matter. You've always been the strongest person I know, even when you were pretending to be weak. I love you. Anthony. I was still holding the letter when Haley found me in the kitchen. He left that this morning before school, she said quietly. He was afraid to give it to you in person. And what about you? Are you afraid of me too? Haley sat down across from me at the table, the same table where I'd served thousands of family meals. I was, but not anymore. What changed? Dad called last night, from the hotel. Her voice was small. He wanted me to ask you to take him back. Said he'd learned his lesson. What did you tell him? I told him it was too late for lessons. She looked up at me with eyes that seemed older than her 19 years. Mom, I need to tell you something. About Tori. What about her? She's not pregnant. I heard her on the phone with someone yesterday, laughing about how she'd fooled everyone. She was going to fake a miscarriage once she got what she wanted. I set down the letter carefully. How do you know this? Because she called me. Wanted me to convince you to let them come back. Said she'd make it worth my while. Haley's face twisted with disgust. She offered me money, Mom, to betray you. And I hung up on her. The doorbell rang before I could respond. Through the window, I could see Ivy standing on the porch with a bottle of wine and a grin. Emergency celebration, she announced when I opened the door. I have news. We settled in the living room while Haley retreated upstairs to give us privacy. Okay, spill, I said. Caleb's in serious financial trouble. The bank called in his loans when they discovered the collateral issue. He owes over $100,000 with no way to pay it back. And Tori left him yesterday, cleaned out his wallet and disappeared. Apparently she found someone with better prospects. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt oddly empty. What about Sandra? Living in a studio apartment across town. Word is she's telling everyone who'll listen that you're a vindictive witch who destroyed her family. Maybe I am. Ivy studied my face. Having second thoughts? Sometimes, late at night, when the house is too quiet, I wonder if I went too far. Trinity, look at me. Ivy's voice was firm. That man threw you away like garbage. His family treated you like dirt. They would have left you with nothing if they could have. I know. Do you? Because you're sitting in your own house, on your own land, with your children safe and fed, and you're feeling guilty about it. The front door opened, and Anthony walked in with his backpack slung over his shoulder. Hey, Mom. Hey, Ivy. He paused in the doorway. Did you get my letter? I did. Come here. He approached cautiously, and I pulled him into a hug. You have nothing to apologize for, I said. You were a kid caught in an adult mess. That's not your fault. But I said horrible things to you. You were hurt and confused. I forgive you. Haley appeared at the top of the stairs. Can I come down? I have something to say too. Of course. She joined us in the living room, perching on the arm of Anthony's chair. I've been thinking about what happened, about everything. And I was wrong about you, Mom. I thought you were weak because you didn't fight back right away. But you weren't weak. You were smart. You let them show their true colors before you played your hand. I'm not sure it was that calculated. It was brilliant, Anthony interrupted. Dad always said you weren't strategic, that you didn't think ahead, but you outsmarted all of them. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I glanced at it and felt my blood chill. Trinity, it's Caleb. I'm at rock bottom, lost everything. Please, can we talk? I know I messed up, but I love you. I always loved you. I showed the message to Ivy, who snorted. Predictable. What are you going to do? Haley asked. I looked around my living room, at my children, at my best friend, at the home I'd fought to keep. Then I deleted the message without responding. Nothing. I'm going to do absolutely nothing. Good, Anthony said firmly. He made his choice. We all made our choices, I said, and now we live with the consequences. Ivy raised her wine glass. To consequences, and to Trinity, who finally stopped letting other people write her story. To Mom, Haley added, raising her water bottle, the woman who taught us that sometimes the best revenge is just refusing to disappear. Anthony clinked his soda can against our glasses. To family, the real kind. As we sat there in my living room, in my house, on my land, I realized something. I wasn't the same woman who'd been blindsided by divorce papers 3 months ago. That woman had been afraid of being alone, afraid of starting over, afraid of not being enough. This woman knew better. You know what the funny thing is? I said. I spent 20 years trying to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect woman. I thought if I just gave enough, sacrificed enough, loved enough, I'd be safe. And now, Ivy asked, now I know that safety doesn't come from other people. It comes from knowing your own worth and never, ever letting anyone convince you to settle for less than you deserve. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Caleb. I turned off the phone and set it aside. So what happens now? Haley asked. I looked at my children, my beautiful, complicated, resilient children, and smiled. Now we figure out what we want our lives to look like. All of us, together. Can we start with finishing the kitchen renovation? Anthony asked. Those contractors left a real mess. We can start with whatever we want, I said. It's our house, after all. And for the first time in 20 years, I meant it.
A favor is never free in my family. It's a loan, and the interest is your silence. You do the work, you take the blame, you absorb the insult, and in return, you get to stay. You get to keep your seat at the dinner table even if no one passes you the salt. My name is Cadence. I'm 26, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the family's ghost. I'm the quiet one, the dependable one, the one who looks nothing like the rest of them. My sister Summer is 2 years older, and she is the sun, radiant burning in the center of our family's universe. She has our mother's blonde hair and our father's sharp blue eyes. I have mousy brown hair and quiet gray eyes that my mother, Virginia, once described as undecided. The week of my father's 60th birthday party was a masterclass in our family dynamic. I spent 3 days chopping vegetables, polishing silver, and fielding calls from the caterer because my mother insisted a personal touch was crucial. What she meant was my touch was free. Cadence, darling, be a dear and handle the florist, will you? Summer is just swamped with the event planner, she'd said, not even looking up from her phone. Summer was swamped getting a blowout and a manicure. I saw the pictures on her Instagram story. I was dependable. Summer was important. That was the unspoken contract. My father, Scott, walked through the kitchen, patting me on the shoulder without breaking stride. Good girl, Cadence. Always holding down the fort. It wasn't a compliment, it was a job description. Being the outsider wasn't a new feeling. It was the air I breathed. They'd leave me behind for weekend trips, claiming I got carsick. They had inside jokes I'd never understood, shared memories from before I was old enough to participate. But the worst was the constant casual cruelty about my place in the family, usually delivered by Summer with a dazzling smile. I remember last Thanksgiving like it was a movie I couldn't stop replaying. The whole extended family was there. I'd made a comment about how I was the only one who hated cilantro, and Summer, holding a wine glass like a scepter, laughed. Well, of course you do, she said, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. We're probably from 2 completely different bloodlines. I'm a Williamson through and through. You're a delightful mystery. The table chuckled. My father smiled fondly at her. My mother just waved a dismissive hand as if I were a fly buzzing too close to the gravy boat. Oh, Summer, don't tease your sister. But her eyes were twinkling. They loved it. They loved the joke that I didn't belong, the joke they'd been telling my whole life in 100 different ways. The one about me being switched at birth, or the mailman's daughter, or just plain adopted. After years of it, a part of you starts to believe it. But that Thanksgiving was different. It was the crack in the dam. A few days later, I called my godmother, Simone. She's my mother's estranged sister, the only person who ever looked at me like I was a person and not a placeholder. I told her what Summer had said, my voice shaken with a rage I hadn't let myself feel before. Simone was quiet for a long moment. "There are things about your family you don't know, sweet girl," she'd said, her voice heavy. "If you really want to know the truth, well, science doesn't lie." That was 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks since I took money from my savings, money I'd been putting away for a down payment on a tiny apartment and escape, and ordered a DNA kit online. It arrived in a plain brown box, and I did the test in my bathroom with the door locked, my heart hammering against my ribs. I sent it off and tried to forget about it. Now, 2 days before the party, my phone buzzed with an email notification. "Your DNA results are in." My hands went cold. I sat on my bed, the scent of lemon polish from the silver still on my fingers, and clicked the link. The site loaded, a cheerful, sterile blue and white. I navigated to the DNA relatives section. My breath caught in my throat. I don't know what I expected, a list of strangers, confirmation that the joke was real. But there, at the very top of the list, were the words that changed everything. Parent-child, match, Scott Williamson. 99%. My vision blurred. I read it again and again. The letters swam together and then snapped back into focus. It wasn't a mistake. It was a fact, a cold, hard scientific fact. I was my father's daughter. My hands started to tremble, a violent, uncontrollable shudder. All the years of being the odd one out, the changeling, the afterthought. It was all a lie. A deliberate, cruel lie. A wave of nausea and a dizzying, terrifying clarity washed over me. I looked at my reflection in the dark screen of my phone. "So I'm not the outsider," I muttered to the empty room, the words tasting like copper in my mouth, which means someone else is. The 2 days between seeing my results and my father's party were the longest of my life. I moved through the final preparations in a fog, my secret a hot, heavy stone in my gut. Every polite smile from my mother, every casual order from my father, felt like a scene from a play where I was the only one who'd read the final act. The party was exactly as pretentious as I'd expected. Held at a local country club, the ballroom was draped in white linen and overflowing with flowers that probably cost more than my car. A string quartet sawed away in the corner, providing a delicate soundtrack to the clinking of champagne flutes and forced laughter. I stood near the back, nursing a glass of sparkling water, feeling like a ghost at the feast. Summer, of course, arrived an hour late. She made an entrance, not an arrival. Dressed in a shimmering silver dress that clung to her like a second skin, she swept into the room, air-kissing guests and flashing a smile so bright it was practically a weapon. My father's face lit up when he saw her. He wrapped her in a hug, beaming as if she'd just personally guaranteed his immortality. "There's my girl," he boomed. After another hour of schmoozing, my mother tapped a spoon against her glass to get everyone's attention for the gift presentation. Summer took center stage, holding a heavy-looking box wrapped in ostentatious gold paper. "Daddy," she began, her voice dripping with manufactured emotion, "what do you get for the man who has everything? I wanted to give you something that celebrates what you've always valued most, legacy, family." She handed him the box. He tore it open to reveal a sleek, expensive-looking DNA kit. A few people in the crowd murmured in appreciation. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Let's confirm what we already know," Summer announced, winking at our father. Her eyes flickered to me for a fraction of a second, a glint of pure malice in them. "A family tree of pure Williamson strength." Then came the digs, subtle as razor wire. "I wanted to get you the premium package, but Cadence couldn't chip in," she said with a dismissive little laugh, as if my financial situation were a charming family anecdote. My father just patted her arm, oblivious. My mother smiled proudly. A cousin I barely knew leaned over. "Is it true you were adopted, Cadence? Summer mentioned it once." "She's practically adopted anyway." Summer's voice cut across the space, loud enough for our little cluster to hear. "We love her all the same, though." The room started to tilt. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic trapped bird. The polite chatter of the guests became a dull roar in my ears. I could feel a panic attack clawing its way up my throat, hot and suffocating. I gripped my small clutch purse so hard my knuckles turned white. Inside, my phone felt like a bomb. Just then it vibrated. I glanced down, my hands shaking as I read the text. It was from Diego, my best friend. He knew everything. He was the one who'd sat with me for hours, helping me understand the science behind the results, his background as a biology major finally coming in handy for something other than trivia night. "You don't owe them anything," the text read. "You can walk out right now and we can go get tacos. But if you're ready, I've got your back." His words were an anchor in the storm. I took a deep, shuddering breath. He was right. I didn't owe them my silence anymore. I didn't owe them my pain. My father was making his way to the microphone to thank everyone. After his brief boilerplate speech, my mother announced it was time for family toast. Summer went first, of course, delivering a flawless, tearful tribute that didn't contain a single genuine memory. Then an uncle, then a cousin. The microphone was about to be put away when I felt myself move. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else as I stepped forward. "I'd like to say something." A ripple of surprise went through the family section. I never volunteered for public speaking. I never volunteered for anything. My father gave me a slightly puzzled but encouraging nod. Summer's perfect smile tightened at the edges. I walked to the front of the room, the faces of 100 guests blurring into a single expectant mass. My hands were steady now. The panic was gone, replaced by an icy calm. I took the microphone. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate my father's 60th birthday," I began, my voice clear and even. It didn't even sound like my own. "Summer's gift was very thoughtful. It's true that legacy and family are the most important things to him." I paused, letting the words hang in the air, and turned my head slightly to look at my sister. "I actually brought a gift, too, just not one you can wrap." I held the microphone, my knuckles white. The silence in the room was a living thing, thick and heavy with anticipation. My parents were watching me with expressions of mild confusion, while Summer's face was a mask of strained pleasantry. She thought this was a joke, another one of my awkward attempts to fit in. I pulled my phone from my clutch, my movements slow and deliberate. I unlocked it and opened my email, holding it up so the screen glowed in the dim ballroom light. "For years we've had this running joke in our family," I said, my voice echoing slightly. "The one where I'm the odd one out, the one who doesn't belong, the one who must have been switched at birth." I saw a flicker of unease in my mother's eyes. My father's brow furrowed. "Well," I continued, my gaze sweeping across them before landing squarely on my father, "I decided to stop treating it like a joke. I decided to find out the truth." I tapped the screen, enlarging the text of the result. Turns out I'm 100% my father's daughter. A few polite, confused claps started and then died out. The air crackled with tension. I let the statement hang there, a bomb with a lit fuse. People were looking at each other, wondering what the punchline was. I turned my head slowly, my eyes finding my mother in the crowd, which was a relief, I said, my voice dropping to a more intimate conversational tone that still carried through the microphone. But the test also confirmed something else I think we should all know. It confirmed that my mother, Virginia, has zero genetic connection to me. Absolute silence. It was more profound than any noise, a sudden total void of sound. The string quartet faltered, their bows hovering over their instruments. Then a sharp, distinct crash. My mother, Virginia, had dropped her cocktail glass. It shattered on the polished floor, the sound unnaturally loud in the dead quiet. My father had gone the color of ash, his mouth slightly agape as he stared not at me, but at his wife. But Summer's reaction was the most terrifying. Her practiced, dazzling smile didn't fall. It froze. It became a brittle, unnatural rictus, her eyes wide and fixed on me with an expression of pure, unadulterated horror. She looked like a porcelain doll that had just been cracked down the middle. As I looked at my mother's horrified face, a memory surfaced, sharp and painful. I was maybe 10 years old, looking through a dusty photo album. There were pages and pages of Summer as a baby, in the hospital bassinet, her first bath, her first smile. But there were only a handful of me, and they all started when I was a toddler. "Where are my baby pictures?" I'd asked Virginia. "Like Summer's?" My mother had stiffened, her hands fluttering nervously as she closed the album. "Oh, the camera was broken that year, darling." Such a shame. She'd quickly changed the subject, bustling off to the kitchen to get me a snack I hadn't asked for. Even then, I knew it was a lie. A mother doesn't just forget to document the first 2 years of her child's life. Now I knew why. There was nothing to document because she hadn't been there. The party dissolved into chaos. People started murmuring, casting furtive glances at our family. My father was being led to a chair by his brother, while my mother was frantically trying to pretend nothing had happened, her voice high and shrill. I slipped away from the microphone and headed for the exit, needing air. A hand clamped down on my arm in the hallway, spinning me around. It was Summer. The frozen smile was gone, replaced by a snarl. "What do you think you're doing?" she hissed, her voice low and venomous. Her perfectly manicured nails dug into my skin. "I'm telling the truth," I said, my own voice barely a whisper. "The truth?" She let out a laugh that was more like a choke. "You just blew up our family in front of 100 people. You humiliated Mom and Dad. For what? Because you were feeling left out?" "They're the ones who lied," I said, pulling my arm free. "For 26 years. Her face contorted with rage. She took a step closer, her body radiating a heat I could feel even a foot away. "They did that to protect us. To protect this family. And you just tore it all down for a moment in the spotlight." For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of her. I just saw her for what she was. A terrified gatekeeper of a perfect, fragile lie. "You have no idea what you've just done," she whispered, her eyes boring into mine. It wasn't just an insult, it was a threat. The days after the party were suffocatingly quiet. My father had checked into a hotel and my mother was locked in her bedroom. Summer was gone. No one knew where. I was left to wander the silent, cavernous house, the scene of the crime, the air still thick with unspoken accusations. The shattered glass had been cleaned up, but the cracks in our family's foundation were now gaping chasms. On the third day, Diego came over. He found me in the kitchen staring into a cold cup of coffee. He didn't say anything, just took the mug from my hands, dumped it in the sink, and made a fresh pot. "Okay," he said, leaning against the counter as the coffee maker gurgled to life. "What's the plan? Because I know you. You're not the burn it all down and walk away type. You're the burn it down and sift through the ashes for answers type." He was right. The explosion at the party hadn't brought me peace. It had just opened 100 new doors, and I was terrified of what was behind them. "I don't even know where to start," I confessed. "My entire life has been a lie. Virginia isn't my mother, so who is? And why did they lie about it?" "We start with what we know," Diego said, his analytical mind kicking into gear, "and we talk to the one person who isn't afraid of the truth." An hour later, I was sitting in my godmother Simone's cozy, cluttered living room. She poured me a cup of tea, her expression grim but not surprised. "I knew this day would come," she said, settling into her armchair. "Virginia can't keep a lid on a pot that's boiling over." I told her everything. The DNA test, the reveal, the fallout. She listened patiently, nodding. When I was done, she stood up and went to an old wooden chest in the corner. She pulled out a dusty manila envelope. "Your mother thinks I destroyed these years ago," she said, handing it to me. "She begged me to." My hands trembled as I opened the clasp. Inside were yellowed, folded documents, legal papers. I scanned them, my breath catching in my throat. They were temporary custody papers, but they weren't for me. They were for Summer. Dated 25 years ago, they showed that Virginia had granted temporary guardianship of a 3-year-old Summer Williamson to a family in the next state. It only lasted for 6 months before she was returned. "Why?" I whispered, looking up at Simone. "Why would she give Summer away?" Simone's eyes were filled with a deep old sadness. "Because Scott was coming into the picture, and Virginia had a child from a previous relationship she couldn't explain, her first boyfriend, a boy our parents hated." She paused. "She got Summer back once she and Scott were serious, and she told him, well, I don't know what she told him, but he obviously believed it. The pieces started to click into place, forming a picture that was uglier than I could have imagined. Later that day, I called Lawrence Lynch, the family lawyer. I told him I had some questions about my father's estate planning. "Cadence, now really isn't the time," he said, his voice strained and overly formal. "I think it is," I said coolly. "I'm my father's biological daughter. I'd like to know if there are any adoption records on file for my sister." There was a long, telling silence on the other end of the line. That's a privileged matter," he stammered, sounding genuinely nervous. "I can't discuss another client's personal files." His panic was all the confirmation I needed. That night, my phone lit up with a string of garbled texts from Peyton, Summer's best friend. They were sloppy and riddled with typos, clearly sent from a bar. "Summer is a biatch. She blames you for everything. Said I was a bad friend." Then a few minutes later, a final, chilling message came through. "She cried once, said she has to keep up the lie or she'd lose everything. I never knew what she meant. Now I do." I saved the screenshots. Diego and I spent the next evening poring over the documents from Simone again. Tucked into the back of the envelope, we found something we'd missed, a flimsy carbon copy hospital record. It was a birth announcement for a baby girl born 28 years ago. The mother's name was listed as Virginia Bell, and the baby's surname wasn't Williamson. It was Bell. The quiet lasted exactly 4 days. On the 5th, Summer came back. I heard her car pull into the driveway, the crunch of gravel loud in the afternoon stillness. She didn't use her key. She hammered on the front door until I opened it. She looked like a storm cloud in expensive athleisure wear. Her hair was scraped back in a messy bun, Her face was pale, and there were dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. The mask of perfection had more than just cracked. It had shattered. "Where are they?" she demanded, pushing past me into the foyer. "Dad's at a hotel. Mom's in her room." "Not that it's any of your business," I said, closing the door. She spun on me, her eyes blazing. "My business? You set a bomb off in the middle of my life, Cadence. You ruined everything. All because you were jealous. You've always been so pathologically jealous of me." "This isn't about jealousy, Summer. This is about a 26-year-old lie." "It was a lie to protect this family," she shrieked, her voice echoing in the large, empty house. "Something you wouldn't understand because you were never really a part of it." The cruelty was so familiar, so automatic, that it barely stung anymore. I just looked at her. "Keep telling yourself that," I said, and walked away, leaving her standing alone in the marble entryway. Later that night, I heard my father's key in the lock. He hadn't come back to stay. He'd come back for a fight. His voice in Virginia started as a low rumble from the downstairs study, but soon escalated. I sat at the top of the stairs, hidden in the shadows, and listened to the foundations of my life crumble into dust. "She was already 2 when I met you." Scott's voice was low, guttural, with a pain I'd never heard from him before. 2 years old, Virginia. Why didn't you just tell me? We could have adopted her legally. I would have loved her as my own. You think it's that simple?" Virginia's voice was sharp, defensive. "My parents had just died. I was a single mother with no money, and you were perfect. You wouldn't have wanted damaged goods. I did what I had to do for her." "For her or for you?" he shot back. "And what about Cadence, my actual daughter? You let her grow up feeling like an outsider in her own home. You let Summer treat her like dirt." "Why?" There was a pause, and when my mother spoke again, her voice was stripped of all pretense, leaving only the cold, hard truth. "Because it didn't matter that you were her father. Summer was already mine. She's more mine than Cadence ever was." I felt the air leave my lungs. It was the final confirmation of a lifetime of feeling second best. I wasn't just the runner-up. I was from an entirely different race she had no interest in running. The next morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Lawrence Lynch. "Cadence," he said, his voice clipped and professional. "I'm calling on behalf of your father. He has made some immediate and decisive changes to his estate plan. He has disinherited Summer effective immediately." I was silent, processing the words. "Furthermore," he continued, "there is a family trust. A clause has been triggered by this action. As the sole remaining biological heir, you are now the executor of the remaining assets. I've been instructed to courier the relevant documents to you today. You'll need to review them." The package arrived 2 hours later. It was thick and heavy with legal documents. I spread them out on the dining room table, the same table where Summer had called me a delightful mystery. I went through pages of trusts, deeds, and asset portfolios, and then I found it. A file folder labeled Household Accounts. Inside were bank statements going back 5 years, and on those statements a clear, undeniable pattern: monthly transfers, thousands of dollars at a time, moving from one of my father's investment accounts into an account under the name S. Bell. There were credit card statements linked to the same account, showing lavish trips, designer clothes, a down payment on her luxury SUV. Summer hadn't just been the golden child, she'd been a thief. Siphoning money for years, bleeding my father dry while smiling in his face. The weight of the crown I'd just been handed suddenly felt a lot heavier and a lot sharper. I found Summer in the sunroom, scrolling through her phone with a furious intensity, probably reading the fallout from the party on social media. The bank statements felt heavy in my hand. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I walked over and placed the folder on the glass table in front of her. She glanced up annoyed, then her eyes fell to the bank logo on the top page. A flicker of genuine fear crossed her face before being replaced by her usual defiant glare. "What is this?" she asked, though we both knew she knew. "It's 5 years of you stealing from the man you called Dad," I said, my voice flat. "Fancy trips, designer bags, a new car, all paid for out of his investment account. Bell, I'm guessing that's you?" She slammed her phone down on the table. "He gave me that money. It was a gift. He loves taking care of me." "Does he?" I countered, tapping the statement. "Because these are transfers, Summer, not gifts, scheduled, hidden, and moved into an account under your birth name. That's not a gift, that's theft." Her composure finally broke. The carefully constructed facade of the perfect daughter crumbled, revealing the panicked, cornered person underneath. "You did this!" she spat, standing up so fast her chair scraped against the tile floor. "You've ruined this family just because you were jealous of me your whole life. You couldn't stand that I had everything, so you decided to destroy it. I'd been waiting for this accusation my entire life. I'd played out this scene in my head 1,000 times, always imagining I'd scream back, that I'd list every slight, every insult, every moment of casual cruelty. But standing there, looking at her unravel, I felt nothing but a cold, quiet certainty. "No," I said, and the calmness in my own voice surprised me. "You ruined this family. The moment you decided the lie was more important than the truth, the moment you decided your comfort was worth my pain, I just stopped pretending." She stared at me, speechless, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. For the first time, she had no comeback, no witty retort, no dazzling smile to deflect the truth. There was nothing left to hide behind. Later that evening, my father came back to the house to pack a suitcase. I found him in his study standing by the window, looking out at the manicured lawn he'd always been so proud of. He looked 10 years older than he had at his party. "Lawrence told me you have the trust documents," he said, not turning around. "They arrived this morning," I confirmed. "I saw the bank statements." He finally turned to face me, and his eyes were filled with a profound, weary shame. "I should have seen it," he said, his voice raspy. "God help me, I always thought she was a reflection of me. Ambitious, charming. I wanted to see myself in her so badly that I ignored who she really was." He took a hesitant step closer. "I'm sorry, Cadence, for everything. I was a terrible father to you." It was the first apology he'd ever given me. It was everything I had ever wanted to hear. But as the words settled in the quiet room, I didn't feel the rush of vindication I'd expected. I just felt hollow. The victory was empty. The wounds were still there. They were just finally out in the open. The next day, I went to see Simone. I needed to escape the oppressive silence of the house. I told her about the confrontation with Summer, the conversation with my father, the hollow feeling that had settled in my chest. She listened, her expression thoughtful as she refilled my teacup. "Justice is a bitter drink, sweet girl," she said softly. "It cleanses the wound, but it doesn't make it disappear." We sat in silence for a few minutes, the only sound the ticking of the grandfather clock in her hall. "There's one more thing you should know," Simone said finally, her voice heavy. "Something I've kept quiet for Virginia all these years, but you deserve the whole truth now." She looked me straight in the eye. "Summer knows who her real father is. She's known for years." I stared at her confused. "But you said it was some old boyfriend your parents hated." "It was," Simone confirmed. But he didn't just disappear. He's a powerful man now, a very successful, very married man. And for the last 10 years, he's been paying to keep the truth buried, paying Summer directly to make sure his perfect life remains untouched by his past. Backed into a corner and stripped of her inheritance, Summer did the only thing she knew how to do. She tried to rewrite the story with herself as the hero. A local lifestyle magazine had covered my father's party, and she reached out to the reporter who'd written the fluffy society piece. She spun a tale of a troubled, unstable sister, jealous of her perfect life, who had fabricated a cruel story to tear their loving family apart. She painted herself as the victim, the graceful, forgiving daughter trying to hold things together in the face of my unhinged attack. She thought she was controlling the narrative. She had no idea I was the one holding the pen. The article went online on a Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, I was ready. I didn't fight her with words. I fought her with facts. I created a simple, anonymous web page, a blank canvas for the truth. At the top, I posted a high-resolution scan of my DNA results, the parent-child match with my father and the 0% match with my mother highlighted in red. Beneath it, I uploaded the hospital record showing Summer's birth under the surname Bell. Then came the bank statements, a clear chronological ledger of her theft, with the transfers to the S. Bell account circled. For the final piece, I added the screenshots of Peyton's drunken texts, the ones where she admitted Summer had always been terrified of the lie getting out. I sent the link to Peyton first. An hour later, she forwarded me a string of vicious, abusive texts from Summer, accusing her of betrayal. Peyton's response was simple. She's not lying, Summer. And you know it. Peyton posted the link on her own social media with the caption, "The truth always comes out." It was like dropping a match in a fireworks factory. The link spread through our town's social circles like wildfire. The magazine that had published Summer's victim piece was flooded with comments. The Williamson family name, once a symbol of quiet prestige, became a joke. Summer's carefully curated online presence, her yoga streaming page full of posts about authenticity and living your truth, was decimated. Sponsors for her wellness brand dropped her within hours, issuing public statements about valuing transparency. My father called me that evening. "I'm disowning her," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "Legally, completely. I want her name scrubbed from my life." He didn't have to. Summer had already scrubbed it herself. A week later, my father asked me to dinner, not at a restaurant, but at the house. It was the first time he'd been back to stay. The air was still heavy with the ghosts of arguments, but it was quiet. Simone and Diego came, a small, makeshift circle of people who had chosen truth over comfort. We sat at the long dining room table in the very chairs where my family had once performed their perfect lives for holiday guests. Diego sat next to me, his presence a quiet, steady comfort. Simone was talking to my father about something mundane, the garden, and for the first time he seemed to be genuinely listening. I glanced out the large bay window that overlooked the front lawn. It was dusk, and the sky was a bruised purple, and standing just beyond the edge of the manicured flower beds, partially obscured by the shadows of an old oak tree, was Summer. She was just watching us. Her face was pale in the fading light, a ghostly silhouette against the darkening lawn. She wasn't crying or screaming. She was just watching us sit at her table in her house, living a life that was no longer hers. For once, I was the daughter he sat beside, and she was the one on the outside looking in. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel pity. I just felt the quiet, profound finality of it all. The scales had been balanced, the roles reversed. I turned away from the window, back to the warm light of the dining room, and picked up my fork. Funny how quickly karma finds its way home. The silence in the house has become a permanent resident. It's been weeks since I saw Summer through the window, a ghost haunting the edges of a life she'd been evicted from. I heard through Simone that she packed her things and left town without a word. Virginia went with her for a week, then returned to the house, moving through it like a stranger. She doesn't speak to me. If we pass in the hall, she looks straight through me, her face a mask of cold grief, as if I'm the one who died. My father and I are trying. It's an awkward, stilted dance. He calls every few days, his voice hesitant on the phone. We talk about the weather, about the stock market, about anything other than the 26 years of lies that sit between us. He's trying to build a bridge over canyon, and I'm not sure how to tell him I don't know if I want to cross it. He is my father, a biological fact, but the man himself is a stranger I'm only just meeting. My real family has become the one I chose. Diego and Simone are my constants. Diego comes over most evenings and we'll cook dinner or just sit in the quiet living room, the silence between us comfortable, not suffocating. He doesn't push me to talk about it, but he's there when I do. Simone calls to check in, her voice a warm, steady presence that reminds me I'm not adrift. Last week I started volunteering at a youth education center downtown. I help kids with their homework, read to them, listen to their stories. I see so many of them hungry for a kind word, for someone to pay attention. I'm determined to never be the kind of person who fails a child so utterly, who makes them feel like a ghost in their own life. It's a start, a way to build something new from the wreckage. My revenge was complete. I had won. I had reclaimed my name, my place, my truth. But as I sit alone on a rainy evening watching the water streak down the glass of the sunroom window, I have to admit a hard truth to myself. Justice doesn't fill holes. It just lets the pain breathe for the first time. The emptiness is still there, a hollow ache where a family was supposed to be. The mail lies on the kitchen counter where I left it this afternoon. Among the bills and junk mail is a thick plain manila envelope with no return address, just a typed label with my name. It's from the private investigator I quietly hired the day after Simone told me about Summer's biological father. I needed to know. I needed the final piece of the puzzle, not for anyone else but for me. My hands are steady as I tear it open. Inside is a slim file, a few photographs, a short, concise report. My eyes scan the text, my heart a slow, heavy drum in my chest. The report details a man successful, powerful, with a pristine public image and a family of his own. A man who had made regular, untraceable cash payments to Summer for a decade. I flip to the last page, to the photograph stapled to the corner. It's a candid shot of a man in a suit getting out of a car, a man I've known my whole life, a man who has been to this house for Christmas parties and summer barbecues, a man who called me just weeks ago to inform me I was the executor of my father's trust, Lawrence Lynch, the family friend, the family lawyer. A cold, final clarity settles over me. His nervousness on the phone, his complicity in the secrets. He wasn't just protecting a client, he was protecting himself, the final, dirtiest secret of them all. I close the folder. I don't burn it. I don't plan on showing it to anyone. I simply walk into the study, open the bottom drawer of the heavy oak desk, and place the envelope inside. A final truth I pocket for myself. The knowledge is its own kind of power, the kind you don't have to use.
Enjoy being a slumlord! Zuriel's cackle echoed through the courthouse hallway like nails on a chalkboard. She clutched Wayne's arm, her perfectly manicured fingers digging into his expensive suit jacket as they watched me sign the final papers. My name is Savannah Wells,
and I was about to become the proud owner of the most worthless piece of real estate in downtown. At least that's what they thought. "You sure you want to do this, honey?" Wayne's voice dripped with fake concern. "That building's been condemned twice. The foundation's probably shot to hell." I looked up from the documents, meeting his eyes for the first time in months. "I'm sure." "Your funeral," Zuriel muttered, then louder. "Come on, Wayne, let's go celebrate. Natasha's waiting at the club." The lawyer cleared his throat. "Mrs. Wells, you understand you're accepting full responsibility for all liens, code violations, and structural issues?" "I understand perfectly." Wayne shook his head, that same patronizing smile I'd fallen for 8 years ago. "You always were too stubborn for your own good, Savannah. Remember when you insisted on that ugly kitchen backsplash? This is just like that, except it'll cost you everything." "At least I won't have to look at your face every morning." Zuriel gasped dramatically. "Well, I never!" "No, you probably haven't," I shot back, standing up. "Thanks for the building. I'll send you a postcard from my new penthouse." They laughed. Actually laughed. Wayne wiped his eyes like I'd told the funniest joke he'd ever heard. "Penthouse," he wheezed. "Good one, Savannah. You'll be lucky if that rat trap doesn't collapse on your head." I gathered my papers and walked out without another word. Behind me, I heard Zuriel stage whisper, "Poor thing's completely delusional. Wayne, darling, we should probably have her committed." The October air hit my face like a slap. I stood on the courthouse steps, watching Wayne help his mother into his BMW. The same car I'd helped him pick out 3 years ago. The same car where I'd found Natasha's earring under the passenger seat. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Lucia. "Heard about the settlement. Call me." I deleted it without responding. 20 minutes later, I stood in front of my new property. The Meridian Building. 5 stories of crumbling brick and broken dreams. Graffiti covered the ground floor windows, and half the fire escape hung at a dangerous angle. A homeless man slept in the doorway, surrounded by shopping bags. "Excuse me?" I said gently. He looked up with cloudy eyes. "Building's empty, lady. Nothing worth stealing." "I know. I own it now." He laughed, a sound like grinding gears. "You and half the city, probably. Good luck with that." I stepped over a pile of broken glass and pushed open the front door. The hinges screamed in protest. Inside, the lobby was a disaster. Water stains covered the walls like abstract art, and chunks of plaster littered the floor. The elevator doors hung open, revealing a shaft filled with debris. But I saw something else. Something Wayne and Zuriel couldn't see because they'd never bothered to learn what I did for a living. The bones were good, solid. The crown molding, though damaged, was original. The marble floors, buried under years of grime, were salvageable. The windows were tall and perfectly positioned to catch the morning light. I pulled out my phone and took pictures, documenting every corner, every detail. My structural engineering degree wasn't just for show. I knew what I was looking at. A sound from the stairwell made me freeze. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. "Hello?" I called out. Silence. I climbed to the second floor, my heels echoing in the empty space. More damage, but the same solid foundation. The same potential. On the 3rd floor, I found it. A small office with a view of the river. Through the dirt-caked windows, I could see the new convention center going up across the street. The hotel construction 2 blocks down, the coffee shops and boutiques slowly creeping into the neighborhood. Wayne thought he'd stuck me with a worthless building in a dead part of town. He had no idea what was coming. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Lucia. The envelope was manila, unmarked, slipped under my car's windshield wiper. Inside, a single sheet of paper with a city seal at the top and 1 line of text. City Council meeting, November 15th, agenda. Item 7, Downtown Revitalization Initiative. I looked up at the building, then back at the paper. Someone knew. Someone wanted me to know. I smiled for the first time in months. 3 weeks later, I was living on ramen noodles in spite. My savings account looked like a phone number with too many zeros on the wrong side of the decimal point. "Aunt Savannah, you look like garbage," Remy announced, barging into my studio apartment without knocking. At 16, my niece had mastered the art of brutal honesty. "Thanks, kiddo. Really what I needed to hear today." She flopped onto my couch, which was also my dining room table and office chair. "Mom's worried about you. She thinks you're having a breakdown." "Your mom thinks a lot of things." "She also thinks you should apologize to Wayne and ask for alimony." I nearly choked on my instant coffee. "She what?" Her exact words were, "Savannah needs to swallow her pride before she ends up homeless." I'm not homeless. I have a building. A building with no heat, no electricity, and probably asbestos. The asbestos report came back clean, actually. Remy raised an eyebrow. "You got an asbestos report? That costs like $2,000. "It was worth it." I pulled out my laptop, showing her the photos I'd been organizing. "Look at these architectural details, the original hardwood under all that carpet, the tin ceilings. It looks like a crack house, Aunt Savannah. It looks like potential." My phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Savannah? It's Winston Miller. We worked together on the Morrison project?" I sat up straighter. Winston was a city planner, someone I'd collaborated with on a bridge renovation 2 years ago. "Winston, hi. What's up?" "I was wondering if you wanted to grab lunch. I heard about your, situation. Thought you might want to chat about some opportunities." "What kind of opportunities?" "The kind better discussed over sandwiches. You free today?" An hour later, I sat across from Winston at a tiny cafe downtown. He looked nervous, constantly checking his phone and glancing around like we were conducting a drug deal. "So," he said, cutting his sandwich into precise triangles, "I heard you acquired some property in the Meridian district." News travels fast. Small town, big mouths. He leaned forward. "Have you looked into preservation grants?" "For what? The building's not historically significant." "Isn't it?" Winston pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos. "I did some digging. The Meridian building was headquarters for the Freedom Coalition in 1963. Civil rights organizing happened in that building, Savannah. Important stuff." My heart started racing. How important? Important enough for federal preservation money. If someone were to apply for the right grants, document the history properly. He shrugged. "Could be looking at serious funding." "Why are you telling me this?" Winston's smile was cryptic. "Let's just say I believe in second chances, and I think some people deserve to win for once." "What aren't you telling me?" "Nothing you need to worry about. Just, if I were you, I'd get those grant applications in soon. Things are moving fast in that neighborhood." After lunch, I drove straight to the building. The homeless man was gone, but someone had left fresh graffiti on the front door. "Condemned," in dripping red letters. I was scrubbing it off when a car pulled up. A city vehicle. "Ma'am, you can't be here." The code enforcement officer was young, maybe 25, with the kind of mustache that screamed, "Trying too hard." "I own this building." "Not for long if you don't address these violations." He handed me a thick envelope. "You've got 30 days to bring everything up to code, or we're condemning it." I tore open the envelope. The list was 3 pages long: new electrical, new plumbing, structural reinforcement, fire safety systems. The estimated cost made my stomach drop. "This is impossible. No one could fix all this in 30 days. "Not my problem, lady. City's cracking down on slumlords." "I'm not a slumlord." "Sure you're not." He climbed back into his car. 30 days. I stood there holding the papers, watching him drive away. The wind picked up, scattering leaves around my feet. A few blocks away, I could see construction cranes working on the new developments Winston had mentioned. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Saw the news about your building. Congratulations on your new money pit. W. Wayne." Of course. I was typing back a response when another car pulled up. This one I recognized, Lucia's minivan. She rolled down the window. Get in. I'm busy. Savannah, get in the damn car. We need to talk. I climbed into the passenger seat. Lucia looked tired, older than her 37 years. Remy told me about your lunch with Winston. So you're playing with fire? Winston Miller's been under investigation for 3 months. Bribery, kickbacks, the whole thing. My blood went cold. What? Whatever he told you, whatever he's promised, it's not worth it. Walk away from this building before it destroys you. I can't walk away. Why? Because of Wayne? Because of pride? Because it's all I have left. Lucia was quiet for a long moment. No, it's not. You have family. You have people who love you. Do I? Because it feels like everyone's just waiting for me to fail so they can say, I told you so. That's not fair. Isn't it? I opened the car door. Thanks for the warning about Winston. I'll handle it. Savannah! I said, I'll handle it. I slammed the door and walked back to the building. Behind me, I heard Lucia drive away. The violation notice crumpled in my fist as I stared up at the broken windows. 30 days. It might as well have been 30 minutes. But as I stood there, something caught my eye. A small historical marker, so covered in grime I'd missed it before. I scraped away the dirt with my fingernail. Meridian Building, 1963. Historic Civil Rights Organizing Site. Winston was right. The building was historically significant. And if it was historically significant, there were rules about condemning it. Rules that might just buy me the time I needed. The city archives smelled like old paper and broken dreams. I'd been there since opening, digging through boxes of documents from the 1960s. My back ached and my eyes burned, but I'd found gold. Excuse me, I called to the librarian. I need copies of all these documents. She looked at the stack I'd assembled. Meeting minutes, newspaper clippings, photographs of protesters gathered outside the Meridian Building. That's going to be expensive. How expensive? $200 for this many copies. I handed over my credit card and prayed it wouldn't get declined. An hour later, I sat in my car outside the building, organizing everything into folders. The evidence was overwhelming. The Freedom Coalition had operated out of the 3rd floor for 2 years. They'd organized the bus boycotts, the lunch counter sit-ins, the voter registration drives. Martin Luther King Jr. had spoken there twice. My phone rang. Savannah Wells. Ms. Wells, this is Margaret from the State Historic Preservation Office. I understand you're interested in nominating a property? The Meridian Building, yes. I have documentation. I'm afraid there's been a complication. We received a complaint that the building is structurally unsound. We can't process historic nominations for condemned properties. My stomach dropped. The building isn't condemned yet. According to our records, condemnation proceedings began yesterday. That's impossible. I have 30 days. I'm sorry, Miss Wells. Perhaps you should speak with the city. She hung up. I stared at my phone, then at the building. Someone was moving fast to shut me down. I was still sitting there when Wayne's BMW pulled up. He got out wearing a smug expression and a $1,000 suit. Savannah, what a pleasant surprise. What do you want, Wayne? Just checking on my investment. He gestured at the building. I heard you're having some trouble with the city. How did you hear that? Small town, remember? Word gets around. He walked closer to my car. You know, I feel bad about how things ended. Maybe we can work something out. Like what? I'll buy the building from you. Take it off your hands. You can walk away with enough money to start over somewhere else. How much? $50,000? I laughed. I paid more than that in divorce settlement. That was before the condemnation notice, before the violation citations, before the city decided to crack down on slumlords. His smile was razor sharp. $50,000 is generous, considering. Considering what? Considering what's going to happen to people who don't play ball with the city's development plans. The threat was clear. I got out of my car, standing close enough to smell his expensive cologne. You know what, Wayne? You're right. I should have listened to you from the beginning. His eyebrows shot up. Really? Really? You always were smarter than me. Better at reading people, better at making deals. I stepped closer. That's why I'm so curious about something. What? If this building is such a worthless piece of garbage, why are you so eager to buy it back? His smile faltered for just a second. I told you, I feel bad. Bullshit. You've never felt bad about anything in your life. You want this building for a reason. I pulled out my phone, showing him the historical documents. Maybe the same reason someone's trying to fast-track the condemnation. Wayne's face went pale. Where did you get those? Public records. Amazing what you can find when you actually look. I scrolled through the photos. The Meridian Building, historic civil rights headquarters, federal preservation money, prime real estate in an up-and-coming neighborhood. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? Tell me, Wayne, what did you and your mother know about the downtown development plans when you insisted I take this building? Nothing. We knew nothing. Then why are you here? Why the sudden interest in helping your ex-wife? Wayne stepped back, his composure cracking. You're paranoid, Savannah. You always were. Am I? Or did you and Zuriel think you were pulling the con of the century? Stick the stupid wife with the worthless building while you cash in on the development boom? That's insane, is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you made a mistake. You thought I was too dumb to see the potential, too broken to fight back. I smiled. Congratulations, Wayne. You played yourself. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the building. When he spoke again, his voice was different, harder. You have no idea what you're up against. Enlighten me. The people behind this development don't mess around. They want this block, and they're going to get it, with or without your cooperation. Let them try. I'm serious, Savannah. Walk away, take the $50,000 and disappear. Or what? Wayne looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Or you'll lose everything, and I mean everything. He got back in his car and drove away, leaving me standing on the sidewalk with my heart pounding. I was still processing the conversation when I heard voices from inside the building, male voices speaking in low tones. I crept to the front door and peered through the broken glass. 2 men in hard hats were walking through the lobby, taking pictures and making notes. They weren't city inspectors. Their equipment was too expensive, their clothes too clean. One of them was on the phone. Yeah, the structural damage is worse than we thought. Foundation's completely shot. We're talking full demolition. I backed away from the door, my mind racing. They were documenting problems that didn't exist, building a case for condemnation. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Stop digging or you'll get buried. I looked up at the building, then at my car, then at the street where Wayne had just been. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture they formed made my blood run cold. But it also made me angry, angrier than I'd ever been in my life. They thought they could intimidate me, thought they could steal my building and my future. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd show them what dirty really looked like. Winston answered on the first ring. Savannah, I was hoping you'd call. We need to talk, now. I can't meet in public, too risky. Then where? Riverside Park, the old pavilion, 20 minutes. I found him sitting on a bench, feeding ducks with stale bread. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. You look terrible, I said, sitting down beside him. Thanks. You too. He tossed another piece of bread into the water. I heard about your building inspection yesterday. You mean the fake inspection? The one where they documented problems that don't exist? Winston's hand froze halfway to the bag. How do you know they were fake? Because I'm a structural engineer, Winston. I know what foundation damage looks like, and my building doesn't have it. He was quiet for a long moment. You're in deeper than I thought. How deep are you in? Deep enough to lose my job, maybe my freedom. He looked at me sideways. The corruption goes all the way to the top, Savannah. City council, planning commission, code enforcement. They're all getting paid. By who? Development Consortium. They want that whole block for a luxury shopping complex. Your building's the last holdout. So they're manufacturing violations to force me out? Among other things. Winston pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos. Look at this. The screen showed bank records, payment receipts, email chains, names I recognized from City Hall, amounts that made my head spin. Where did you get these? I've been documenting everything for months. Insurance policy. He put the phone away. But it won't matter if you don't have the building to fight for. What do you mean? Your grant application was denied this morning, officially due to structural concerns, unofficially because someone made a phone call. My heart sank. The preservation grant was my only shot at getting the money for repairs. Not your only shot. Winston stood up, brushing crumbs off his pants. There's another way, but it's risky. I'm listening. Go public. Make noise. Get people talking about the building's history, the corruption, all of it. Sometimes public pressure is the only thing that works. How do I do that? You know that blogger Chelsea, the one who writes about local drama? I groaned. Chelsea West? She's a gossip vulture. She's also got 50,000 followers and a talent for making things go viral. If you can get her interested in your story, she'll turn it into a circus. Maybe. But circuses get attention, and attention makes it harder for people to do shady things in the dark. An hour later, I was sitting in Chelsea's cluttered apartment, watching her eyes light up as I told my story. This is incredible, she said, typing furiously on her laptop. Corrupt city officials, development conspiracies, a woman fighting back against her ex-husband's schemes. My readers are going to eat this up. I need you to focus on the historical significance, the civil rights angle. Oh, honey, that's just the appetizer. The main course is the revenge story, bitter divorce, evil mother-in-law, the works. She looked up from her screen. Tell me about Zuriel. What about her? Is it true she made you sign a prenup that left you with nothing? How did you... I have sources. Is it true she called you barren at the divorce hearing? The memory hit like a punch to the gut. That's not relevant to the building. Everything's relevant, sweetie. This is about more than preservation grants. This is about justice. Chelsea spent the next hour grilling me about every detail of my marriage, my divorce, my relationship with Wayne's family. By the time I left, I felt like I'd been through a blender. But her blog post went live that evening, and within hours, my phone was ringing nonstop. Savannah Wells, this is Channel 7 News. We'd like to interview you about your building. Ms. Wells, this is the Tribune. Can you comment on the allegations of city corruption? Savannah, it's Joseph Mann from Mann Development. I think we should talk. Joseph Mann. I knew that name. He was one of the biggest developers in the city, the kind of guy who built shopping centers and office complexes. Mr. Mann, I'm not interested in selling. I'm not interested in buying. I'm interested in partnering. What kind of partnership? The kind where we restore your building properly and make a lot of money doing it. But I need to see permits within a week, or I walk. A week? That's impossible with all the violations. Figure it out. The city's going to be under a microscope now, thanks to your blogger friend. Use that pressure to your advantage. He hung up, leaving me staring at my phone. A week to get permits that had been systematically blocked for months. I was still processing the conversation when Remy burst through my door. Aunt Savannah, you're famous! She held up her phone, showing me Chelsea's blog post. It had been shared over 1,000 times. Great, just what I needed. Are you kidding? This is amazing! Look at the comments. People are furious about the corruption. They're organizing protests, calling City Hall, demanding investigations. She was right. The comments section was a firestorm of outrage. People sharing their own stories of city corruption, calling for heads to roll, demanding justice. "There's more," Remy said, scrolling down. Someone posted financial records. "Look." My blood went cold. The records showed massive debt in Wayne's name, credit cards, business loans, a second mortgage on the house I'd helped him buy. "He's broke," I whispered. "Worse than broke. He owes like $2 million. Remy looked up at me. "Aunt Savannah, what if the building wasn't about screwing you over? What if it was about saving himself?" The pieces clicked into place. Wayne wasn't trying to punish me. He was trying to get rid of a liability before his creditors found out about it. The building, with all its violations and problems, was a debt he couldn't afford. But now, with the development plans public and the historical significance documented, that same building was worth a fortune. My phone buzzed, another unknown number. "You should have taken the $50,000. Now you'll get nothing." The line went dead. I looked at Remy, then at my phone, then at the laptop showing Chelsea's viral blog post. "Actually," I said, "I think I'm about to get everything." The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Chelsea's blog post had exploded overnight. "Savannah, you need to see this." Remy was already at my kitchen table, laptop open, looking like she'd been up all night. "What now?" "Someone leaked Wayne and Zuriel's tax records. Look at this." The screen showed documents I'd never seen before. Shell companies, offshore accounts, charitable donations that went nowhere. The Griffin family's philanthropy was a money laundering operation. Where did these come from? Anonymous tip to Chelsea, posted at 3 a.m. with a note, "The truth about the Griffin family charity scam." My phone rang. Chelsea. "Savannah, have you seen the news? This is huge." "I'm looking at it now." "Not the tax records. Turn on Channel 7. I grabbed the remote. The morning news was running a segment about city corruption, with my building featured prominently. But that wasn't what made my blood freeze. Wayne was on screen, standing outside his office building, surrounded by reporters. "These allegations are completely false," and he was saying. "My family has donated millions to local charities. This is clearly a vindictive attack by my ex-wife." "Mr. Griffin," a reporter called out, "can you explain these financial discrepancies in your foundation's records?" "No comment." "What about the allegations that you manipulated the divorce settlement to avoid debt collectors?" Wayne's face went red. "This interview is over." He pushed through the crowd, but not before the camera caught something that made me sit up straight. Zuriel was in the background, arguing with a man in an expensive suit. Even through the TV, I could see she was panicked. "Remy, can you rewind that?" She backed up the footage. There, clear as day, was Zuriel handing the man an envelope. He shook his head, said something that made her face go white, and walked away. "Who is that guy?" Remy asked. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." An hour later, I was sitting in Joseph Mann's office, trying not to look intimidated by the floor-to-ceiling windows and marble everything. "You've caused quite a stir," he said, not looking up from his computer. "That wasn't my intention." "Wasn't it?" He finally met my eyes. "You leak financial records, expose corruption, turn your ex-husband into a public enemy, and you're telling me it was an accident?" "I didn't leak anything." "Right. And I suppose you don't know anything about the anonymous tip that brought down 3 city council members this morning?" My heart skipped. "What?" Joseph turned his monitor around. The headline read, "City council members resign amid corruption scandal." Your blogger friend has been busy. Seems someone's been feeding her information all night. Bank records, email chains, recorded phone calls. He leaned back in his chair. "Whoever your source is, they're thorough. I told you I don't know anything about—" "Savannah," his voice was sharp, "I don't care who's helping you. I care about results. Can you get permits for your building or not?" "With half the planning commission under investigation? Probably." Probably isn't good enough. I need guarantees. Then give me more than a week. Can't do it. The market's moving too fast. Every day we wait, property values go up. Every day you're in the news, more developers circle the block. He stood up. 1 week, or I find another project. I left his office feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. 1 week to navigate a bureaucracy and chaos, get permits that had been blocked for months, and somehow prove I could handle a multi-million-dollar development project. My phone rang as I reached my car. Lucia. We need to talk. Now. I'm busy. Remy's missing. My blood went cold. What do you mean missing? She didn't come home last night. Her bed wasn't slept in. I found her laptop open to those financial records you've been spreading around. I haven't been spreading anything. Bullshit, Savannah. My daughter is involved in whatever game you're playing, and now she's gone. I was already starting my car. Where are you? Home. And Savannah? If something happens to my daughter because of your revenge fantasy, I will never forgive you. She hung up. I drove to Lucia's house going 20 over the speed limit, my mind racing through possibilities. None of them were good. Lucia met me at the door, her face streaked with tears. The police won't do anything for 24 hours. They say she's probably just acting out. Have you called her friends? All of them. No one's seen her since yesterday afternoon. We went up to Remy's room. Her laptop was still open, browser history showing hours of research into Wayne and Zuriel's finances. But there was something else, a chat window I didn't recognize. What's this? I clicked on it. The conversation made my stomach drop. Someone had been messaging Remy, asking about her family, about me, about what she knew. The last message was time-stamped at 11 p.m. the night before. Meet me at the usual place. I have something that will help your aunt. Lucia, who is Deep Throat 47. I don't know. Remy never mentioned anyone by that name. I scrolled through the messages, looking for clues. Then I found it, a reference to the building where it all started. She's at the Meridian building. We drove there in silence, both of us imagining the worst. The building looked the same as always, broken, abandoned, dangerous. But Remy's bike was chained to a lamppost outside. Remy! Lucia called out as we ran toward the entrance. Up here! The voice came from the 3rd floor. We climbed the stairs 2 at a time, Lucia sobbing with relief. We found Remy in the same office where I'd discovered the historical marker, sitting at a folding table with a laptop and stacks of papers. What the hell are you doing? Lucia demanded. Helping Aunt Savannah win? Remy looked up with a grin. You're not going to believe what I found. She turned the laptop screen toward us. It showed bank records, email chains, recorded phone calls, everything that had been leaked to Chelsea overnight. Remy, I said slowly, where did you get all this? Wayne's office computer. Turns out he never changed his passwords after the divorce. Still uses your anniversary date for everything. Lucia and I stared at each other, then at Remy. You hacked into Wayne's computer? Technically, I just logged in with his password. That's not hacking. She looked proud of herself. I've been gathering evidence for weeks. Every dirty deal, every bribe, every lie. It's all here. Remy, this is illegal. So is corruption. So is fraud. So is trying to steal Aunt Savannah's building. She stood up, looking more like an adult than a teenager. They started this war. I'm just helping her finish it. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your niece is very resourceful. It would be a shame if something happened to her. I showed the message to Lucia. Her face went white. We need to call the police. No, I said. We need to end this. Tonight. We're getting Remy out of here. Now! I grabbed her laptop and papers, shoving them into a backpack. Aunt Savannah, I'm not leaving. This is too important. Your safety is more important. Is it? Because if we don't finish this, they'll just find another way to hurt us. Remy's voice was steady, determined. I'm 16, not 6. I know what I'm doing. Lucia grabbed her daughter's arm. "We're going home. End of discussion." "Mom, listen to me. I found something else. Something that changes everything." She pulled up a new file on her laptop. "Construction permits, dated 6 months ago, for the entire block surrounding my building. They've been planning this for months," Remy said. "Wayne knew about the development before the divorce was even final. Look at the dates." The permits were signed 3 weeks before our settlement hearing. Wayne had known exactly what he was doing when he insisted I take the building. He was going to let me get stuck with all the violations, then buy it back for pennies when I couldn't afford the repairs, I said. "Except the development got delayed," Remy continued, clicking through more documents. "Environmental concerns, permit challenges, funding issues. Wayne's been bleeding money trying to keep his investors happy." My phone rang. Winston. "Savannah, where are you?" "At the building." "Why?" "Get out. Now. There's a police car heading your way." "What? Why would—" "Someone called in a break-in. Anonymous tip said you were vandalizing the property." I looked out the window. Red and blue lights were already visible down the street. "Remy, pack up everything. We're leaving." "There's no time," Lucia said, looking panicked. "They're already here." The police car pulled up outside. 2 officers got out, flashlights in hand. "Back exit," I said. "Through the alley." We made it to the ground floor when the front door opened. "Police! Anyone in here?" I motioned for Lucia and Remy to stay quiet. We crept toward the back of the building, but one of the officers was already coming around the side. "There!" he called out. "3 subjects fleeing the scene." "Run!" I told Remy. We scattered. Lucia and Remy went left toward the parking garage. I went right, drawing the officers away from them. My heels weren't made for running, but adrenaline carried me 3 blocks before I ducked into an all-night diner. My phone was buzzing nonstop. Texts, calls, voicemails. I ignored them all and ordered coffee with shaking hands. "Rough night?" the waitress asked. "You could say that." 20 minutes later, Lucia slid into the booth across from me. "Remy's safe. I dropped her at my sister's house." "Good. Did she get the laptop?" "She got everything." Lucia's voice was cold. "Savannah, this has to stop." "It's almost over." "Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're just getting started. The police, the threats, dragging my daughter into your war with Wayne." "I didn't drag her into anything. She chose to help." "She's 16. She doesn't understand the consequences." "Neither did I when Wayne and Zuriel decided to destroy my life." Lucia leaned forward. "Listen to yourself. You sound exactly like them. Vindictive, obsessed, willing to hurt anyone who gets in your way. That's not fair, isn't it? You've turned this into a crusade. You don't care who gets hurt as long as you win." Before I could respond, my phone rang. Joseph Mann. "Savannah, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind where someone just filed an injunction to stop all development on your block, effective immediately." My heart sank. "Who filed it?" "Anonymous Environmental Group. Claims the building contains hazardous materials that need extensive testing before any work can begin." "That's impossible. I had it tested." "Doesn't matter. The injunction stands until a judge reviews it. Could take months." "Joseph, I need more time." "Time's up. I'm out." He hung up. I stared at my phone, watching my last hope disappear. "What was that about?" Lucia asked. "My development partner just walked away." "Maybe that's for the best." "How is that for the best? Without him, I can't afford the renovations. Without the renovations, the city condemns the building. I lose everything." "You still have your family." "Do I? Because it feels like everyone's just waiting for me to fail." Lucia was quiet for a long moment. "You know what your problem is, Savannah? You think this is about winning and losing, but some fights aren't worth winning." She stood up to leave, then turned back. "Remy found something else tonight, something she didn't show you." "What?" "Wayne's medical records. He's sick, Savannah. Really sick. Cancer. Stage 3. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? The debt, the desperate schemes, the rushed timeline. It's not about greed. It's about medical bills. He's trying to secure his family's future before he dies. She walked away, leaving me alone in the diner with coffee going cold and a world that suddenly looked very different. My phone buzzed. Another anonymous text. Last warning. Walk away or lose everything you have left. I looked around the empty diner, at the fluorescent lights and cracked vinyl booths, at my reflection in the dark window, hollow-eyed and exhausted. Maybe Lucia was right. Maybe some fights weren't worth winning. But as I sat there, another text came through. This one from Remy. Don't give up, Aunt Savannah. I believe in you. I finished my coffee and walked back into the night. The building was dark, surrounded by police tape, but it was still mine, and I wasn't done fighting for it. 3 days later, I woke up to my phone exploding with notifications. The environmental injunction had been overturned overnight, and the city had fast-tracked my building permits. Every violation that had been blocking me for months was suddenly resolved. "Savannah, turn on the news!" Chelsea's voice was breathless with excitement. I fumbled for the remote. Channel 7 was running a breaking news segment about the downtown development project. The reporter stood in front of my building, which was now surrounded by construction equipment and news vans. City officials announced this morning that the Meridian District redevelopment project will move forward immediately, with the historic Meridian building serving as the centerpiece of a $50 million revitalization effort. My mouth fell open. $50 million. The building, owned by local engineer Savannah Wells, has been appraised at $12 million following the discovery of its historical significance and prime location in the city's newest cultural district. $12 million. The building Wayne had forced me to take for practically nothing was worth $12 million. My phone rang. Joseph Mann. "Congratulations, Savannah. You just became a very wealthy woman." "Joseph, I thought you were out." "I was, until the market exploded overnight. Property values in your neighborhood just tripled. I'm back in, if you'll have me." "What changed?" "The mayor held a press conference this morning, announced the city's new cultural preservation initiative. Your building is the flagship project." I was still processing this when another call came in. Wayne. "Savannah, we need to talk. I'm busy. Please, it's important." Something in his voice made me pause. He sounded broken. "Fine, 20 minutes. The coffee shop on 5th Street. I found him sitting in a corner booth, looking like he'd aged 10 years in a week. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair uncombed. Dark circles under his eyes made him look hollow. "You look terrible," I said, sitting down. "I feel worse." He stared at his untouched coffee. "I suppose you're here to gloat." "Actually, I'm here because you said it was important." "It is." He looked up at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before in Wayne's eyes. Fear. "I need your help." "My help?" "The media attention, the investigation, it's all falling apart. The development consortium is pulling out. My investors are demanding their money back. I'm going to lose everything." "And you want me to do what about it?" "Partner with me. We split the building 50-50. Use your permits, my connections. We can both win." I laughed. "You're kidding, right? After everything you've done?" "I know I hurt you. I know I was wrong. But Savannah, I'm desperate." "Why should I care?" Wayne was quiet for a long moment. "Because I'm dying." The words hung in the air between us. I'd known this was coming, thanks to Remy's discovery, but hearing him say it out loud was different. "How long?" I asked. 6 months, maybe less. His voice cracked. "The medical bills are crushing me. I mortgaged everything to pay for treatment. If I lose the house, Zuriel will have nothing." "What about Natasha?" "Gone. Left the day the news broke about the corruption scandal. Took her engagement ring and disappeared." I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation, but all I saw was a broken man facing his own mortality. Wayne, I'm sorry about the cancer. I really am, but I can't help you. Why not? Because you made your choices. You chose to lie, to cheat, to try to destroy me. You chose to put your mother's greed above our marriage. You chose to saddle me with what you thought was a worthless building while you planned to cash in on development deals. I was trying to protect my family. By destroying mine? Wayne slumped in his chair. I never meant for it to go this far. Yes, you did. You and Zuriel planned every detail. The divorce settlement, the building, the violations. You thought you were so smart, playing the long game while I was too stupid to see it coming. You're right. We did plan it. His admission was barely a whisper. But the development got delayed. The investors got impatient. Everything started falling apart. And now you want me to save you? I want us to save each other. I stood up. There is no us, Wayne. There hasn't been for a long time. Savannah, please. Goodbye, Wayne. I walked out of the coffee shop and straight into a crowd of reporters. Cameras flashed. Microphones were shoved in my face. Miss Wells, how does it feel to own the most valuable building in the city? What are your plans for the development? Is it true you're worth over $10 million now? I pushed through the crowd to my car, but one reporter's question stopped me cold. Ms. Wells, what's your response to allegations that you've been manipulating city officials and media coverage to drive up your property value? I turned around. What allegations? Zuriel Griffin held a press conference this morning. She claims you've been orchestrating a conspiracy to defraud the city and destroy her family. My blood went cold. Even facing financial ruin, Zuriel was still fighting. She's also filed a lawsuit claiming the building rightfully belongs to her son's estate and that you obtained it through fraud. The cameras kept flashing as I got in my car and drove away. But I could see the headlines already forming. The narrative was shifting. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the villain. My phone rang. Chelsea. Savannah, we have a problem. Zuriel's story is going viral. She's claiming you're the real criminal in all this. That's ridiculous. Is it? Because some of the evidence she's presenting is pretty convincing. Bank records showing suspicious transfers, emails that look like bribes, recorded phone calls that sound like conspiracy. Those are all fake. Maybe, but the public doesn't know that. And there's something else. She's claiming Wayne is dying and you're trying to steal his legacy. I pulled over, my hands shaking. Chelsea, you know the truth. You've seen the evidence. I know what you've shown me, but Zuriel's got her own evidence now, and her story is simpler, more sympathetic. Dying man betrayed by vindictive ex-wife. The line went quiet. Then Chelsea spoke again, her voice careful. Savannah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Did you manipulate any of this? The permits, the media coverage, the investigation? No, I fought back, but I didn't. Because if you did, if any of this was orchestrated, it's going to come out. And when it does, you'll lose everything. She hung up, leaving me sitting in my car, watching my victory turn to ash. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Checkmate. The next morning, I stood in front of the Meridian building, wearing a hard hat and my best suit, surrounded by reporters and construction crews. The groundbreaking ceremony was supposed to be my moment of triumph, but all I could think about was Zuriel's lawsuit and the doubt I'd seen in Chelsea's eyes. Ms. Wells, a reporter called out, how do you respond to allegations that you manipulated city officials? I respond by letting my work speak for itself. I gestured to the building behind me. This isn't about revenge or manipulation. It's about preserving history and revitalizing our community. What about your ex-husband's claims that you're stealing his family's legacy? Before I could answer, a commotion erupted at the back of the crowd. Wayne was pushing through the reporters, looking desperate and wild-eyed. Savannah, I need to talk to you. Security moved to intercept him, but I held up my hand. Let him through. Wayne stumbled forward, clutching a manila envelope. I have something you need to see. Wayne, this isn't the time. It's evidence about my mother, about what she's been doing. His voice was loud enough for the microphones to pick up. She's been lying about everything. The reporters sensed blood in the water. Cameras swiveled toward Wayne as he opened the envelope with shaking hands. These are the real financial records, he said, pulling out documents. My mother's been embezzling from our foundation for years. The corruption, the bribes, the fake evidence against Savannah, it was all her. Zuriel appeared at the edge of the crowd, her face white with rage. Wayne, what are you doing? What I should have done months ago. He turned to face her, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. Tell them the truth, Mother. Tell them how you forged those documents, how you bribed the code inspector, how you tried to frame Savannah for crimes you committed. You're sick, Wayne. The cancer has affected your judgment. The cancer has clarified my judgment. His voice cracked with emotion. I'm dying, and I won't spend my last months covering for your crimes. Zuriel's composure finally shattered. You ungrateful child. Everything I did was for you, for our family. You destroyed our family. You destroyed my marriage. You turned me into someone I hate. Wayne's shoulders shook with sobs. I loved Savannah, and you made me betray her because you were too greedy to let her have anything. The crowd was dead silent. Even the reporters had stopped asking questions, transfixed by the family drama unfolding before them. Wayne, I said softly, stepping toward him. He looked at me with tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry, Savannah. I'm so sorry for everything. You deserved better than what we did to you. I know. Can you ever forgive me? I looked at this broken man who had once been my husband, who had hurt me so deeply I'd spent months plotting revenge. The anger was still there, but it felt smaller now, less important. I forgive you, Wayne. He nodded, then turned to the reporters. My ex-wife is innocent of all charges. The building is rightfully hers. She earned it through her own intelligence and hard work, not through any conspiracy. Wayne, shut up, Zuriel hissed, but it was too late. A reporter stepped forward. Mrs. Griffin, do you have a response to these allegations? Zuriel looked around at the cameras, at the crowd, at her son who had just destroyed her. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. No comment, she said finally, then turned and walked away. The press conference continued, but the focus had shifted. Instead of questions about corruption and manipulation, reporters wanted to know about my plans for the building, my vision for the neighborhood, my background as an engineer. The Meridian building represents more than just historic preservation, I said, finding my voice again. It represents the power of second chances, the importance of fighting for what you believe in, even when everyone tells you to give up. What's next for you, Ms. Wells? I looked up at the building, then at the construction crews waiting to begin work. We're going to restore this building to its former glory. We're going to create affordable housing, community spaces, and a museum dedicated to the civil rights leaders who once worked here. We're going to prove that sometimes the underdog really can win. The crowd applauded. Cameras flashed. I felt the weight of the hard hat on my head and smiled. After the reporters left, I found Wayne sitting on the front steps of the building, staring at the construction equipment. How are you feeling? I asked, sitting beside him. Lighter, like I can finally breathe again. He looked at me sideways. What you said about second chances, do you think I have one? I think you just took it. What about us? Is there any chance? No, Wayne, that part of our story is over, but maybe we can write a better ending. He nodded, understanding. Will you visit me when things get bad? If you want me to. I'd like that. My phone buzzed, a text from Remy. Saw the news. You're officially the coolest aunt ever. Another from Lucia. I'm proud of you for forgiving him, for being the bigger person. And one from Chelsea. Girl, you just gave me the story of the year. Drinks tonight? I stood up, brushing dust off my suit. Wayne, I have to go. I have a building to renovate. Savannah? He looked up at me. Thank you for giving me the chance to do the right thing. Thank you for taking it. I walked toward my car, past the construction crews and the news vans, and the building that had changed everything. My phone was already ringing with calls from investors, architects, and city officials who wanted to be part of the project. But first I had a family dinner to attend. Lucia had texted an invitation, and for the first time in months, I was looking forward to going home. The Meridian building stood behind me, no longer a symbol of betrayal and revenge, but of resilience and renewal. Just like me. I got in my car and drove toward my future, leaving the past where it belonged, in the rearview mirror.